We aren't looking at America. We're looking at the 14th Amendment. So my goal and my main thing that I would like to accomplish with all the information that I'm doing and all the cool things that I'm doing is to have the 14th Amendment recognized as having never been properly ratified to begin with. The Supreme Court knows about this, but they're not really willing to touch it because they realize that if the 14th Amendment was acknowledged to be having never been ratified properly in the first place, the entire country will revert all the way back to about 1840. I mean, literally instantly. The CIA, the FBI, the IRS, public school system, I can go on and on and on, but I think you get the idea. All of those agencies will immediately and instantaneously be evaporated off the face of the earth.
If you're new to it, I'm going to invite you to stay curious and open and trust that whatever lands for you today lands for you. So to all women, this is one of those things where don't count yourself out just because you've been told that it's masculine, or it definitely can feel heavy and dark at times, but it doesn't have to be. Take it at your own pace. Know who you are, one little important step at a time. You look at this as a rightful place for you to stand firm in the embodiment of your truth, and it can be from that divine feminine lens. Well, hey there, and welcome back to Fire and Soul, the space to deepen your divine alignment and further activate your awakening. You know, it's been my intention since day one to bring you the most embodied teachers, guests, leaders, luminaries in their respective fields. And today's guest is no exception. And especially as so many of us are awakening to a lot more than we even realized maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. And the awakening continues. And so a big part of that is learning about common law, equity law, trust law. And I came across today's guest, Brandon Joe Williams, on a podcast maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And all I can tell you is that I was shocked at how much my soul felt activated by the content. It was like, what? And so I'm not going to lie, I probably had to listen to that particular podcast at least 2, 3 times over. But what I found is that there was this real natural curiosity, and it almost felt like I was destined to learn this or to just start to study it. And then it became a bit of a mandate. And that's where I am now. But when I realized that I wanted to share it with you, it was from a different point of view, because as I was embarking on the path of listening to more of Brandon Joe Williams on a lot of other shows, and then other people, his contemporaries that are also teaching this from such an embodied state, is that it was all men, or a very masculine space. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for these teachers and these guys and these podcasters that I've had the honor and privilege to be introduced to this content from. But it was very clear that there is another way to approach this. And it's from the feminine point of view. And so I brought that up to Brandon Joe Williams right away at the top of the conversation. He was like, yeah, that's called diplomatic relations, right? And or relating. And so I offer that to you because what this has caused me to step into and remember about myself is so beautiful and so sovereign. And that is my intention, is that you look at this as a rightful place for you to stand firm in the embodiment of your truth. And it can be from that divine feminine lens. So we definitely get into taxation and how to become tax exempt and how it's lawful and legal. We definitely roundabout into the 14th Amendment and how the Naturalization Law Act, got us here, and what that means, and how we have been truly enslaved ever since basically 1871, but how many, many people like Brandon Joe Williams are guiding us to our true sovereignty and freedom. This is a major movement. And if you're new to it, I'm going to invite you to stay curious and open and trust that whatever lands for you today lands for you. I've had to revisit so many pieces of content, YouTube videos, podcasts, etc., over and over and over again. And it's been so worth my time to embark on this journey on a personal level, on a spiritual level, on a psychological level, and then, of course, in a service level because I know that I am meant to pay it forward to you. So I encourage you to stay all the way to the end. It's such a robust conversation. It's totally mind blowing. But I believe so many of the common questions that come up of like, how could this be true? How come more people aren't doing this? Is this lawful? Is it really legal? All of those questions get answered in a really beautiful, potent way. So I'm excited for us to dive into this conversation around escaping the matrix in a legal, lawful way, the feminine way, with Brandon Joe Williams. So, my friends, please enjoy this conversation. The way that you speak about your interpretation of what the 14th Amendment is, and we're going to obviously dive into this, is so poetic, so embodied, so spiritual, so beautiful that it literally, you're welcome, made me cry. And then when I continue navigating your website, I see this thing that your mom wrote. And I want to actually, preface with this. This may make me cry a little bit too. And I think this must have been, I don't know, an email or a text or something. She says, "Hey, Brandon, I just finished your course first time through, and I am so unbelievably proud of you." I get emotional. "I don't have the words for how amazing you are. You have shown me that you have achieved what every parent ultimately desires for their children: success, happiness, honor, self-confidence, respect, and above all, freedom. And you have achieved this at a time when the majority of humanity is anything but free. And the best part is that you want to give this to everyone, I'll add, for free. I have never been more proud of anyone in my life. I love you with all my heart, Mom."
Oh. That was from the first course too. I don't know if she's seen the second course, but she's definitely my biggest fan. That's for sure.
It's really beautiful. And it speaks to actually the energetic of how I want to enter this conversation. It's because I've heard pretty much only men speaking in this space, teaching in this space. And I've also heard some men that I love, admire, and follow.
And most of them are black men. I'd like to make a point. Most of them are black men. This space is very much a black dominated space because of the 14th Amendment and the background behind the 14th Amendment and slavery and the Civil War and the end of the Civil War. So I'm not even sure 100% if even a lot of I've asked them, do you prefer black? Do you prefer a different term? They say melanated.
Yes.
So I use the term melanated, and it's, do you, I'm not even sure if a lot of them even totally realize that. I think a lot of them are just, they're just fed up. They're not even completely and entirely sure how or why. They're just fed up. They're just fed up with the system. They're fed up with being treated like shit. They're fed up with, and I thought that this whole thing that the police are racist and they go after blacks, I thought that was all bullshit. But I remember one time, and it's not the best thing in the world, but I remember one time I was sitting at a bar and I was talking with this cop who's in the LAPD, and he has a 30-year track record. And he was sitting there and he was getting drunk. And I wrote a whole article about this on my Williams & Williams law firm website. It's called Cop. I think it's called Cop, Destroyed Cop or something like that, or Cop Destroyed. And I forget the name of it, but anyways, there's an article on it. And he was telling me, yeah, I've been in the LAPD for 30 years. And he's a white guy. He's a white guy, very white, like me, like a ghost. And I said, I asked him a bunch of questions. I asked him about his past. I asked him about some really difficult moments in his life. And he told me this story. And he said there was this one time where he was given a court order to go and pick up this guy's kids. And he went to this guy's house, and the guy came out with a pistol. And he drew his service weapon, and he said, "Put the gun down." And he said it six times. And I asked him, I said, and I was asking him lots of questions because I have a therapy background. I still am a therapist, but I used to do it like every day, actively.
Oh.
And I asked him, I said, and what was going on in that moment? What were you seeing in that moment? What was he wearing in that moment? And then I asked him, what did his eyes look like in that moment? And he said he knew he was going to die.
Oh.
And that's what he told me. And he said, put the gun down 6 times. He wouldn't put the gun down. He shot 3 times in the chest, and he was the one to kill the guy. And he said, why do you think I'm here drinking myself stupid every single fucking night? He said, because every time I go to bed at night, I see his face, and all he was trying to do was protect his children. And I said, I was like, holy fuck, dude. And I said, And I was like, and I was asking him about guns, and I was asking him about permits, and he's like, if you had a gun on you right now, he's like, and you had no permit, I would take you in. And I started laughing. I was like, no, you wouldn't. uh, we didn't get into a fight though. I was just kind of like, yeah, that's not how this works, but I understand. And then I asked him some more questions, and he asked me what I did, and I just kind of blew it off. I didn't really tell him anything. I didn't really want to get into that. I just said I don't know what I said, educator or something. Mm-hmm. And then I said, what percentage of the police force, from your experiences in LAPD, are truly bad people? And he thought about it. He thought about it. He thought about it. And he said 15%. And I said, okay. I said, and what percentage of that 15% used to be good? Mm-hmm. And then because of their experiences on the police force, they became bad. Mm-hmm. He thought about it. And he thought about it for a while. And he said about half. Mm-hmm. So 7.5% of the police force, LAPD, huge monster, probably the biggest, I would imagine, probably the biggest police force in the country. I couldn't imagine a bigger police force. LA is so massive. I can't imagine a bigger force on the planet, on the country, maybe even on the planet. I don't know. It's a monstrous police force, right? And this guy had met a lot of people. He had been in many different divisions. One of the divisions that he was in was actually in down in Watts and Compton. And he used to actually do deals with the drug dealers and stuff like that to try to keep he was involved in like LAPD like gang, like MS-13 gang relations. And one of the things they used to do was they used to go to the big kingpins and the drug dealers and the big guys, and they would try to figure out ways to, because what's amazing, he told me, was that the guys who are in charge of these gangs, they don't want the kids to grow up to be like them, which I thought was incredible. So they had these kind of handshake deals where they would try to keep keep the kids out and do this kind of stuff and help the kids, and helping the kids was sort of like a middle ground where the police and MS-13 were both in agreement that the kids needed to get help and they needed to get out of the hood and that kind of thing. And for those of you who live in LA, there was a time period. There was an incident that occurred a few years ago, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, where there was 2 cops sitting at a train station in Compton, and someone just ran up to the car and shot them both dead and then ran off. Yeah. And he told me that incident was because that whole agreement that the police had with the gangs had ended just before that. And that was a retaliation because of that situation. And he said that, over the years that he worked in the gangland violence section, he says that you'd be shocked how well-spoken and how logical these gangland leaders really are, and they're willing to do certain things to keep kids away from violence and that kind of thing. They just have a totally different reality of what is ethical and moral, etc. And one of the things he told me during the conversation was all this stuff about drinking and he's drunk because he's so upset about the fact that he did this. And he told me, is kind of coming all the way back to the beginning of this conversation. He told me that this whole thing about how cops treat melanated people very poorly and they are targeted. He said that's completely true. He was very clear. He was like, no, that's completely true. 100% across the board. And I was like, really? I was like, that's not like a false thing or a fake thing. He's like, nope. He's like, that is 100% true. I was so shocked. I was like, wow, okay. And so this is a real issue, and it's not just in LA. Apparently I had no idea. I mean, you could say white privilege or whatever you want to say. And I don't mind, I'm not going to defend myself because I have white skin. So if somebody wants to say, oh, he's got white privilege and blah, 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 fine. I don't give a shit. I got white privilege. Great. Let's move on. But the thing is that, my reality as to the situation has changed because when I look at the 14th Amendment and I see how long, blacks or melanated people have been attempting to try to get the same rights as what is considered a state citizen or an actual American, that is the entire subject. That is the entire subject matter, the entire conversation that has opened this black hole of death straight to hell and has literally sucked everyone in the country into it.
Yes.
So, people say systemic racism and the left says systemic racism, right? And the thing is, they're right, but they're right about completely the wrong area entirely. Everything they're talking about is not the correct aspect of the systemic racism. The systemic racism is the 14th Amendment and the slaughterhouse cases from 1871 and the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. That is the core of all the racism, and then everything that has been born since that time has been born out of this racist premise, and I'm not left or right, by the way, because I know typically you hear people talk about racism and it's like, oh, he must be a liberal. I couldn't be farther from a liberal. I actually voted for Trump in 2020. And I was a big MAGA guy for years, screaming like crazy on the internet. I was a huge Trump supporter. Now I don't support anyone for absolutely any reason. I don't vote. I'm not registered to vote. I'm not even a resident of any of the 50 states. I'm not even on paper living in the United States at all. So,
and I'm so glad I can follow that part that you just said.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the thing is it's I've completely disconnected myself from all of this madness. It is madness. It is. And I think that everyone deep in the back of their mind, they know that it's madness. It's kind of fun madness. I'll give you that. It is kind of exciting. It is kind of fun. But I think we all realize secretly in the back of our heads that it's complete fucking madness. And I think that it's getting to a point now where people are emotionally exhausted by it all. I think that people are starting to see that the past 2 or 3 or 4 years they've been fighting and screaming and banners and yelling and doing all these things, and it's done absolutely fucking nothing, if not made the situation just worse. And I think people are just starting to kind of see that and starting to kind of wonder and ask questions about these things. And I think that, part of the explosiveness of my platform, part of it is I've worked so hard to try to mix in humor and fun and simplicity and all these different aspects and self-deprecating humor. And that's new, but I think another thing is just pure timing. I think the timing of what I'm doing is insanely good. I think if I was trying to do this 22 years ago, I think it would be literally 50 to 100 times slower in terms of what's going on, maybe even 150 times slower because I am experiencing monstrous. I mean, when I released 2.0, I don't know if you saw the graphs that I posted. I went from, 1,800 views a day to like 8,000 views a day. Yeah. I went from, 7,000 watch hours per day or whatever I need to check to like 26,000 watch hours a day, or it was like 3,000 to 26,000 watch hours. Yeah. So, the growth and what's going on is explosive. I'm on Joe Rogan's radar. I know for a fact that I am. There's many people around him that have talked to him about me. I'm sure he's just nervous.
Yeah, I know. I pray for his courage to bring you on. Yeah, because that's who I really have to thank. Luke Story was a podcast that I listened to with Deep Religion. I just have learned to really trust and respect the guy and his wife. And I heard that first Common Law episode back in March, and I had heard grumblings about this most of my life. And I have a pretty healthy dose of conspiracy analysm in me, if that's the right word. But still, I didn't fully wake up to any of this until like basically August of 21, but I hadn't really woken up to that. When I heard that episode, I probably listened 3 different times. I couldn't share it with anyone because I was like, why am I so activated? Like my soul felt activated.
Yeah.
Like I'm supposed to learn this. At first I thought I was supposed to teach it. Maybe I am, going one step at a time. I'm just supposed to, and then I said, no way, I'm not teaching that. Hell no, it's too heavy, it's too dark, it's too masculine. And so I'm going to circle back to the masculine feminine thing in a moment, but ultimately I'm here to learn. And so that's a big disclaimer on the show. Like, there's going to be a lot of information that's very mind-blowing. It feels like, how is this even possible? Could it be lawful? Could it be legal? It is. Do your own research, go to Brandon's site and many, many others. But the reality is that if you're feeling called to it, then just slow your little brain down and get present to the information and study.
Yeah, I just released a brand new version, the 2.0 version, to my free contract killer course on the 18th, which is just I was just checking my clock here, four days ago.
Yep.
It is the first course was very popular. I had about 90 to 120,000 people sign up for it. Just to be frank, it's awful. I at the time I thought it was fantastic,
and so did we, by the way.
Yeah, and now I watch it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like literally embarrassed. Like, I want to take it down, but I've had so many people be like, no, you cannot take it down, please God. And I take what my fans tell me. I mean, everything on my whole platform is fan based. If they want it, they get it. And a lot of my stuff, sometimes it takes me a while. Like, I promised my whole audience that I would get them a trust indenture template. Took me a while. There's a few things that take me a while, but if my audience really wants it, then I try as best I can to deliver it. And I have a really good relationship with my fans and my audience.
Yeah, you do. It's incredible.
Thank you. And so my fans were the ones who were like, don't you dare take those down. And I was like, okay. And I cringe now every time I get in there and see there's tens of thousands of people watching these 1.0 videos. I'm just like, oh God, how do I stop this? Because 2.0 is just so much better. I mean, we're talking like not 100, not 200, not 500 times better. We're talking literally like 1,000 times better than the 1.0. The 1.0 was all this information that I had that I wanted to share with everybody, but I didn't really know what was what, and it was kind of disorganized. And I just wanted to like vomit all over the fucking internet and get everyone talking about this stuff, right? Which that's what it did, right? Yeah. The 2.0 is like this ultra honed, like face painted warrior spirit, sharpened axe, like Navy SEAL level shit.
Yeah.
It is like, it can take a person from knowing nothing about anything all the way up to filing their first lawsuit for free without even paying the fees to do it. And I know for a lot of people, that's crazy. The fact that could even be, why would you even want to do that? And most people start out the course, just wanting to not pay taxes or whatever, which is the first video, literally shows you that. That's the easiest thing in the world. And then as we move from there, we start moving into other subjects and cars, and we start moving into money and securities. And then at the end, we move into litigation and enforcement. And the litigation and enforcement end, by the time you're maybe halfway through the course, you're starting to like maybe see it a little bit. You're like, I don't think I want to litigate, but we'll see. By the end of the course, I'm hoping to convert a lot of people over to the litigation end of the spectrum. And like you said, the one thing about litigation is it is extremely masculine. I actually believe that litigation is a masculine rite of passage. And what I mean by that is, in the West, we don't have a clear delineating moment. Like, for example, a woman's period, when a boy becomes a man, there is no delineating aspect. And especially with a lot of people not having fathers and stuff like that of any race, I didn't have a father. I never had a father when I was little. I didn't have a father. I had a stepfather at age 8, 9, or 10. I forget. But before that, I didn't have a father at all. Within a month after me being born, or maybe even before that, I think it was a few months, my father was out of the picture. So the situation is you have a masculine rite of passage, I believe, for most men, is some sort of combat, whether it be hand-to-hand combat, whether it be boxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu, some kind of hand-to-hand combat, or on the non-physical side of combat. I feel like litigation is sort of like an alternative rite of passage that no one has ever talked about and no one even really knew was there. Because I'll tell you right now, I became a man when I started to do litigation at 38 years old. I was a boy my whole life. And at 38 years old, I have become a man. And I'm not saying that the only way you can become a man is by litigating or getting into hand-to-hand combat. But I personally believe, it's my own personal opinion, that those two options are in the West very acceptable, very realistic, very applicable options that can turn a boy into a man. And I think that most women can agree we have a real pandemic going on in the country. And it's not a pandemic involving COVID. It's a pandemic involving boys that have not become men.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. An epidemic that is quite pervasive everywhere, irrespective of the place you domicile or your jurisdiction or.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see these kind of things in, let's say, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has a rite of passage called Mecca, where the young boys go off and they go on this long journey and they do this whole really crazy kind of scary thing that most people in the West would think is totally insane. Yeah. But at the same time, you don't see 25-year-old boys in the Middle East.
Right.
You see 25-year-old men, like what you saw in America in the 50s and 60s when they came back from war. I'm not saying you need war to have men. What I'm saying is that men, I think, have to go through some sort of combat. That's what we are. That is our, and I've had some people disagree with me, but for a long time, at least, maybe not 1,000 years ago, but I feel like, inside our souls to some degree, maybe because of the need for it in today's society, the need to fight and the need to be a warrior. I feel like the rite of passage for a man is skill in combat. And that combat doesn't necessarily need to be hand to hand. I couldn't fight my way out of a paper bag. Probably. I sure as hell would try. But the thing is that when it comes to, art of war doesn't say anything in there about hand-to-hand combat. Everything in art of war is things like appear weak when you are strong, appear strong when you are weak, know thy enemy. All warfare is based on deception. You have these are not involving the way to punch, how to punch hard. None of this information is found in Sun Tzu's Art of War. Art of War is completely psychological. So if war itself in its most basic essence is psychological, then in my opinion, the better choice of combat over hand-to-hand combat would be litigation, because litigation is psychological warfare.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Now, where I wanted to weave back to of the masculine versus feminine energetic behind this movement and more women coming into this space, I don't really know what my position would be right now. I'm just learning and studying from you and a few others, but it seems to me, and I've had a few conversations with men that are way further along, like have had lots of successes, have the remedies, all that kind of thing. They say this is a masculine space. And so then I asked their wives, who are friends of mine, well, are you learning the law? Like, what are you doing as to be a good partner in this? Not a good partner, but just as a partner in this. And they're like, no, the husbands are taking care of that. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are, because first of all, the woman, a natural living woman, is going to at one point possibly have to have a conversation, maybe not litigation, but with a policy enforcer of some sort, or maybe have to appear in court. Maybe not, but irrespective, to be embodied in the legalese feels important, A. But B, there's two parts to this, and I'd love to get your thoughts, is there is a way that feels like it's also a rite of passage as a woman, spiritually, even more so for me than psychologically, like knowing and remembering who I am as the Bible states, which I get is lots of law, etc. But it's a sovereignty act. I don't even know if it's a gender act or a feminine versus masculine. And it's like, standing firm in the embodiment of that truth once I know it and I own it, that feels like the most deepest, fiercest divine feminine I could possibly imagine, if it comes from an energetic of calm, right? And the pillars of common law. So I'm going to pause there because I'm just curious what your thoughts are, so that I want more women to start to awaken to this and not be so afraid, because every single woman that I've shared this with is like, I'm very intrigued. I know I need to learn it, but I'm way too afraid. No way. You go first.
So first and foremost, probably because I am a man and because I've had a million women tell me that they don't see men being men in this world, and they find what I'm doing to be very attractive because of that point. I would say I probably have 65% of my entire audience is female.
Interesting.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is you have, so litigation is only on the enforcement end, right? So the only reason why we need so much litigation, in my opinion, is because we issue orders and we issue changes in contracts. We issue these things and they're either ignored or we're laughed at. And that's why I've opened the door so aggressively to litigation. And that's why I've moved so strongly towards litigation, right? But the thing is that there's this other entirely separate thing that I teach, which is diplomatic relations.
Yes.
So diplomatic relations, if you look up the definition of the word diplomat in Black's Law Dictionary, it's a person who is a representative of a group that deals with nation to nation relations. And a lot of people think that when they, we're all brainwashed. So everyone thinks that the definition of the word nation means a physical location. That is absolutely, I totally destroyed that idea on the first video in the course. That is completely false. That is absolutely asinine, insane, psychotic, ignorant as fuck. The definition of the word nation is just a group of individuals that operate well together with good internal tranquility and good external tranquility, and they operate with morals and decorum, and they spread peace, tranquility, and help throughout other groups in the world. It has absolutely nothing to fucking do at all with physical location at all. Nothing, absolutely fucking nothing to do with physical location. So your friends online, your family that may be spread out all over the globe, these things, if you have a connection with these people and you guys work together to help each other spread tranquility and help and whatever throughout the world, you are legally defined as a nation. And in terms of the United States Code, you would look at 18 USC 11, which is the definition of the term foreign government. If you look up the definition of the term foreign government, it says, and I will actually literally quote it because it's so cool. 18 USC 11, foreign government defined, is defined as includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So what that means is you don't need any recognition. In fact, they don't even need to know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is when you start to understand what is a nation, what is a diplomat, what is a foreign government, what is peace, you start to clear up the definitions of these words, which I clear up all these definitions with you on the very first video of the 2.0 course. By the end of the 2.0 course, the first video, literally no joke, the end of the first video, you're going to be sales tax exempt, federal income tax exempt, state income tax exempt, and you're going to be able to build your own nation within 24 hours.
Okay, this is amazing. Now I want to weave into the 14th Amendment and the most two important words that you also share in video one of what we need to know and why we need to know it now. But before we do, the biggest question that I get, and I'm sure that you've heard a million times and you're probably tired of hearing it, but I just want to ask you in front of my audience that is 99.9% women and very much on the awakening path in a lot of different ways. And she always says, if this is legal and lawful, then why isn't everyone doing it? I have my own response, but I would love to hear it straight from you.
I was terrified.
The pickle's mouth.
I was terrified for a long time. I mean, I was absolutely terrified. When I went in to get my passport done, I was terrified. When I sent in my revocation of election to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purposes of determining my income tax liability, which I'll cover that in video number one, I was terrified. I was terrified filing my first lawsuit. I don't know what to tell you. I just feel like we live in a world where, over the years, there's a part of me that says we've been taught to be terrified. And then there's a part of me that thinks that the terror is nothing more than a reflection of our own terror.
Yes.
It's like, where did you could sit down one day and just kind of think in your head, where did all this terror come from? And you think to yourself, oh, well, I was told 20 years ago by one guy that if I didn't file my taxes, I'd get in trouble. And then it's like the next logical question is, who do you know who has gotten in trouble for their taxes? And there's only one answer I ever get: Wesley Snipes. Okay. So there's a guy who is a huge celebrity that made $12 million, never paid taxes on any of it. if you look up his case in Pacer, which is PACER, which is the government website where you can look up any docket for any case, and you can actually download literally every single submission in the entire case. So Wesley Snipes has a first case, and then he has an appeals case. So he has two different cases. The first case alone has 602 filings into the motherfucking docket. And anyone can get a Pacer account for free, and then anyone can go in and look at all of those 602 filings, and you can download every single thing in the entire filing for 10 cents per page. And if you don't have that kind of money, no problem. The Free Law Project has a program called Recap, RECAP. You can go on there, and anyone who's ever bought and downloaded anything out of Pacer gets automatically sourced into Recap. And I guarantee you the Wesley Snipes case, probably all 602 items of the docket are probably all available on Recap. Mm-hmm. So you can actually go on Recap. You don't need a login. You don't need to spend any money. You just type in Wesley Snipes versus United States or whatever it is, or United States versus Wesley Snipes on Recap. It pops right up. You can look at every single docket item instantly. No logins. You don't need to type your email in. You don't need to type your name in. You don't need to type in a credit card information. Absolutely fucking nothing. So the next logical question is, okay, so out of 20 years, there's been one man who happened to be black, by the way, who was persecuted for tax evasion. Now, his entire docket of his first case, and probably his appeals case as well, is available for free on the internet, all 602 docket items. Have you taken a moment to review as to why that case went south? I've never gotten a yes to that answer. I've never gotten a yes to that answer, right? So you mean to tell me that there's a black man who was persecuted, a celebrity black man who was persecuted 20 years ago, and you know nothing about anything about the situation, even though you can look into and research the situation for yourself for free, most likely on Recap. If not, then for a small amount of negotiable instruments on Pacer. And you've never done so, and you've made all of these decisions, and you give 30, 40, 50% of all of your, what you think is money when it's not, to what you think is the government when it's not. And you've never taken any time or effort to try to understand the situation. What will people go through? People will go through 8 years of college and then 8 years of working in a corporate environment to try to make six figures. Mm-hmm. If you're making 40,000 and you do a little research and you double your income because you're now tax exempt, you went from 40 to 80 in no time whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the thing is that back to your original question, women may feel scared and have a difficult time with the idea of enforcement. Yeah. Enforcement appears to be more masculine for sure. I think it's actually the pinnacle of masculinity personally. Almost every defense attorney I'm facing is a woman, and I wouldn't put my dick anywhere near them for all the money in the world. They are basically, they basically have a penis, essentially. The way they behave, the way they talk, it's horrible. I find them to be terribly unattractive. I mean, not to mention the fact that they're bar cards, so that's a whole nother story. But you swing over to this other subject, which is diplomatic relations. Yes. And now you start to move into something where women and femininity can really, really shine. That's the feminine end of, and frankly, you know, I'm a member of the Ars Amorata. I'm an Amorati member. I'm actually a master Amorati member. The Amorati is a group based off of Zamparian's teachings in the book called The Alabaster Girl, which in my opinion is the greatest book ever written. It's a book about the beauty of women, romance, and the restoration of the feminine and masculine spirit. So, and I actually wrote my own book on the subject called Love is a Battery, which is a little bit more on the nerdy side, rather than the poetic side, right? Zamparian's work is way on the poetic side. My work is way on the utilitarian side. But the thing is that as a member of the Ars Amorati, the Ars Amorata, a member of the Amorati, which is the upper echelon of the Ars Amorata, To me, if I had to choose, if someone said, Brandon, what's more important, enforcement or diplomatic relations in terms of getting this all done and having everything work, I would actually say diplomatic relations, especially once once through enforcement, we start to actually get compliance. Once we start to get compliance, you only need enforcement temporarily. So you're diplomatic and you give an order, and then that order is negated. Now you need enforcement. Now you're bashing people's skulls in. Now, as soon as you bash your skulls in and they go, well, fuck, maybe we should follow the law. Now you don't need enforcement anymore. Now you're back to diplomatic relations.
And it might be too late.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just saying diplomatic relations is the baseline, totally. Right? Because if for the IRS, for example, the IRS does every fucking thing we ask them to do every fucking time without a single fucking problem. So the thing is that we don't have an enforcement issue with the IRS. So our relationship with the IRS is completely diplomatic. Mm-hmm. You can't sue someone if you say jump and they jump immediately. You can't. That's a frivolous lawsuit or a bad faith lawsuit. Bad faith meaning you bring it just to harass or whatever. You can't. If you do that, the courts will discipline you with what's called sanctions or other things, which is like disciplinary fees and stuff like that, right? So if I say jump and you jump, and I say sit and you sit, and I say open that door and you open that door, I can't sue you.
Correct.
If I say jump and you flick me off, now I can sue you.
Right.
So the thing is that if the enforcement end, the masculine end of the spectrum of this is the enforcement arm.
Right. That's a good distinction.
But the diplomatic arm is completely feminine. I step into my feminine all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Really well said. And, I'll highlight that with an example because, as I mentioned, I'm really just on beginning parts of the path, maybe 6 weeks in, studying your course, studying a couple of others, but taking action through your course and the 2.0 version. I just killed my first contract, my voter registration. Felt very proud of that. Yes, very, very proud of that. And that came with like a whole bunch of layers of deep conditioning. And I was like, oh, wow. Oh, the backlash, the feedback, the opinions. Yeah. My own position on it. I was like, that was beautiful shadow work, honestly, for me. That's the way I would refer to it. Totally. But then I kind of like hit multiple roadblocks on the whole birth certificate thing. I know it's not your favorite topic, but I'll tell you how I've gone through this with diplomatic relations. And I'm really proud of this because I was just stonewalled everywhere. We don't even offer that in my state. And so finally I called the Department of Health. I got the supervisor of all these kinds of requests. And throughout the beginning of this conversation, I got him on the phone. I mean, it's just incredible. You can actually get a live person still. So I was like, oh, wow. That's
men typically can't get that kind of thing done, by the way. Because again, women men get very mad and then the other person hangs up on them. That's typically.
Well, sometimes my masculine can come out kind of like these attorneys.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, women are desperately needed for this. This is beautiful. Getting information, FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, phone work, not getting pissed off, diplomatic, relations from human to human. Human isn't even the best term, but fuck it, I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
The women shine a lot more in those areas.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Well, that's beautiful feedback, especially coming from someone who has perspective in such a wide scale, right? And so at first I got him on the phone and I was asking for what I want, and it's called a specific thing that I didn't know about because that wasn't obvious on the website. It was just order your birth certificate, and it's going to be the all caps, which we're going to go into very shortly here about these distinctions and the two different versions of humans, if you will, just to stick with your word, that we actually are operating unknowingly in the world. So that said, so is he. He doesn't know. So I remember you just speaking to that of just like, they don't know. So they're doing the best they can. They're just usually following their duties. It's a very rare exception, right? That someone does know. And so
no one you're going to talk to on the phone knows.
Exactly.
Period.
Especially this dude working at a desk in a cubicle for 10 years, very proud of his title. Yeah. So I knew that he was proud. And so I, with authenticity, cultivated rapport, right? Not that gross, contrived. It was just this natural rapport because I was like, this is like a one-time shot. I gotta like do my best. And he basically said, we don't do it. And I was like, well, that's just interesting because I could have sworn, and I didn't say that I knew for sure, but I could have sworn that, my friend recently, who was also born in the same state, and I just want to keep things kind of vague for the moment, but like did achieve this through you. And then all of a sudden he was like, well, we do have something called, and then he told me what it was. And then he's like, I might be able to help you out with that, but you're gonna have to send me the information directly. So I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. So anyway, sent him the stuff, got it notarized, the whole thing. Called me a couple days ago, and he's like, I just want you to know I have it. He called me. What are the chances, right? He was like, so I
That's
just want to
amazing.
make sure. Yeah, I want to understand. And that, okay, it is amazing because it speaks to the energy behind this, which is what I'm really asking everyone to get present to. It's an energetic, it's a way of being. And if you can operate in the world from that diplomatic, relational, energetic of there's no foe, there's only friend here. We're all doing this together.
Yes.
This guy's in it too, right? And also from that feminine energy of just, I laughed a little bit with him, but it was genuine because I've never met a stranger a day in my life. And I realized that is a particular art, and I was given that gift of connection. But still, please hear it from us. Utilize this, cultivate it if you're going to embark on this path. Next thing I know, he's like, hey, I just want you to know I received this stuff. And I just had a couple of questions about XYZ. It wasn't about why. I thought it was why. And basically, he just wanted to do right by me and get me back exactly what he was understanding me to request. And literally his words were, okay, I'm going to do my very best to make this happen. So stay tuned. Okay. And I was just like, wow, from a guy that 6 weeks ago said, yeah, we don't even offer that, to I just stayed on the phone, built some rapport through diplomatic relating. And next thing I know, he's literally calling me to say, I'm going to do my best to make this happen.
Yeah.
So this is the mandate, I believe, on all of our souls who are in Pickle Nation or wherever else. We have to embark on this journey through an energetic that is of that. And that's, I think, the most important message that I feel called to share, because that's about all I know so far. So I want to pause to see if anything is coming through for you. And then I want to weave into what are we really talking about here? Because this feels like a really powerful place that we started, because it feels, I don't know, a little more anchored in what this show is and a lot of women that I know are thinking.
Yeah. So enforcement, let's see, how do I want to say this? Enforcement and litigation can definitely sometimes be avoided through extremely well done charisma and diplomatic relations. So what you just described, I could achieve through litigation, but it might take me 9 months.
Yeah.
Do you see the difference? And it's going to be hell, and I'm going off to war. I'm going to beat the fuck out of everybody and burn buildings to the ground and everything else. But by the end, I'm getting that fucking piece of paper. Do you see the difference?
I do.
Now sometimes that's necessary.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you're extremely talented, I mean a horrible example, but an example that illustrates the situation in a very fascinating, fucked up, holy fuck, mind crackling kind of way is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
Extremely well educated. I think she spoke like 11 languages fluently.
Yeah.
Speaking publicly in the UN, speaking publicly in the Council of Foreign Relations, which is all horseshit, or the Council on Foreign Relations is for sure pretty horrible, but the UN is, I have mixed opinions about. But the super ultra, I think she was like Harvard educated or Stanford or something crazy. It's unbelievable that a woman of that power and stature, she embodied, in my opinion, and I know this is a horrible example, but for some reason it's the first one that came to my mind. She embodies an extreme power of the feminine spirit that has been converted and morphed into a tool, a usurped tool of masculine degradation. In my opinion, this is my opinion, right? She was setting up international treaties. She was speaking in 9, 10, 11 languages fluently. She was flying around the world, creating these relationships. She was obviously doing horrible, illegal trafficking, through, all the things. But the thing is that if you think about it, she was, it's terrible. I don't know what to tell you. It's horrible for me to say it, but the first thing I think of when I think of unbelievable feminine diplomatic power, that's the first person I think of. And it's very depressing and sad. But the thing is that it goes to show you a powerful diplomatic woman, if she takes that power and that energy and points it towards something horrible and evil, how much of a gigantic empire of horseshit can she build?
Right.
And the answer to that question is a private island, and the degradation and the what do you call it when you
enslavement?
When you have dirt on someone and you control them through
extortion.
The dirt, extortion, and all the stuff of all these political pieces all over the world, and then controlling the entire political narrative through extortion, and there's another term that I'm missing right now, blackmail.
Yeah.
It's, the Ghislaine Maxwell, whatever his name was, the guy who was the one behind it all.
Jeffrey Epstein.
The Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell was a blackmailing empire.
Right.
And they controlled and shifted and changed policies and laws around the entire planet through this blackmail empire.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if that same feminine power that Ghislaine Maxwell has and had both, what if that power was used for something good, constructive, and healthy, rather than somehow, and I'm not going to sit here and judge, but at some point in time, something happened that she decided that she was going to go in the direction that she went. But what if that same power that she had would have been used and applied for something constructive to help the world, rather than something destructive to destroy and control the world through blackmail?
Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah, great illustration. That intention, that declaration, that knowing that you talked about a moment ago from the masculine point of view in litigation, and that you are going to get it done, right? I had that same intention. I knew. I was like, it is happening. And the way it's going to happen is going to be done through ease and grace and diplomacy. And so, but that is not necessarily my propensity at all times. I do have a domineering part of me, and it does me very well in moments when I know to call on it. Like, luckily, I have now learned when to just completely surrender into my feminine, and I don't have to lead through that energetic. But that for me was so mind-blowing and mind-opening for me, of like, okay, I get it. It's intention, knowing who I am, right? Being in right relation with actually everyone. These policy enforcers, IRS, is not being angry, not being resentful, not separating and dividing and judging. They don't know better, 99.9%, as I'm learning from you and many others. So all that said, that really is a beautiful segue, I think, for us to start, which is, and I know you know exactly where you would want to start. It's probably video one, and talking about status correction and those two words that are super important for us to know. And then I want to segue into 14th Amendment. But I think to start, for those who are brand new to this and are just like, where are we going? Can you speak to maybe core concept of how we are operating in the world right now, most by the mass majority, unknowingly, as two humans, for lack of a better term, for the moment, and how that's shifting? This great awakening is causing so many people to like reclaim one over the other, and what that even means. And that, I think, might lead us into why, status correction, 14th Amendment, or vice versa.
Do you want me to do a little presentation, or do you want me to just talk about it?
What do you want to do?
I'd rather show it.
Okay, cool. So for those of you who are listening, you can check this whole conversation out on YouTube, and that's at my name, Michelle Sorrow, MICHELLESORRO. It's a really small audience over there on YouTube, but it's growing. So come on over there and watch it.
I don't have screen share access.
Here, I'll give it to you.
If you can't figure it out, I can just talk, I guess.
No, here you go.
Oh, look at you. Everyone has such a hard time trying to figure it out on
7
Zoom.
years running an online business.
Thank God.
Oh,
I've spent literally 40 minutes trying to figure that out with people on shows.
it
It's
happens.
horrible.
That was probably me in the beginning too.
All right. So,
look at all these codes that you have searched.
28 USC 3. Well, that's all I do, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's so awesome.
So the way this works is, and I'm going to explain this real simple. Okay. This is how you look things up, right? The first number is the title number. So if you go to the United States Code, you can see all the different titles. These are all the different major. This is where everything starts. And then it breaks down into 8 million different spider webs from this point, right? But title means like the main chapter of some main aspect of the main body of law that we typically use. Not always, but typically, most of the time you're going to hear USC or US Code, right? So this means Title 28, this first number here. If you go to the US Code, we go to Title 28. What does that mean? Judiciary and judicial procedure. Okay. This is the body of law, the United States Code. This is a section symbol, and then this is the section number 3002. Very simple. Okay. Go down to subsection 15. We're going to see here, United States means a federal corporation.
Mind blowing.
Okay. And we're not going to get into all this stuff. It's way more complicated. It'll slow down the pace. So I don't usually get into B and C at all, but B and C pretty much encompasses A anyway. So A is kind of the primary.
So the
thing.
literal legal definition of United States means a federal corporation. Continue.
And then we have, we're going to go to the tax code, which is Title 26, which is called the Internal Revenue Code. And we're going to find out what is there's two words that are the most important words in all of law. This is the second most important word in all of law, in my opinion. It's the definition of the word person. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation.
Wow.
So if United States is defined as a federal corporation and the term person includes corporations, then that means that United States is a person, which is exactly correct. Okay. That's why in a criminal case, you see United States versus John Doe. It's a person versus a person.
Mm-hmm.
Any group operating together is a person. And we're going to get into that here very shortly, right? So then we're going to go over to 42 USC 19102, I believe it is. And then it's subsection 18, I think. Yeah, here it is.
Good job.
So we have United States citizen. What does that mean, right? So if we look at subsection C, you're going to get a shocking realization here. Any corporation, partnership, association, or other entity organized or existing under the laws of the United States is a United States citizen.
Wow.
So if you have an S corp, that S corp by itself, even if you were gone, is by itself a United States citizen.
Mm.
If you have an LLC by itself with you not involved at all, that LLC is a United States citizen.
Hmm.
But the definition that people typically think of is any individual who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. Now, the rabbit hole of the word individual is quite long. We're not going to get into that because that'll slow down the pace of this quite a lot. But the definition of the word individual is definitely up for a lot of conversation and debate. But just for the sake of fun and humor and just to keep this rolling, let's just assume possibly maybe that the definition of the word individual includes you, which I actually don't think it does, most likely. But let's just assume that it does, just for fun, right? So law would mean basically by some sort of body of law, but you would have to be the one to enter yourself into that law. Mm-hmm. Birth, which is a long conversation we're not going to get into that I don't really think matters. I think this is very easy to fight in litigation. And then we have naturalization, which I believe is actually the key to everything. I think it's the key term. I believe that you can actually remove these two completely and just say naturalization by itself. And I think it would be a more accurate, more clear, and more honest description of subsection A, right? So then we go to 8 USC 1101 subsection A23, and we're going to find out what is the definition of this term naturalization. And this is I said that the word person is the second most important word in all of law. I personally believe that the term naturalization is by far the number one most important term in all of law, and you will see why in a moment. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I usually go through this word by word. So conferring means bestowing upon, the typical definition you would think of. Nationality means, having a contractual relationship with a group via some sort of pledge of allegiance. That's basically the definition of nationality. And then you have this term state, which most people believe, oh yeah, state. That means one of the 50 states of the Union. That is not at all even close to the definition of the word state at all. The definition of the word state, and I'm just going to use my website because it keeps the pace up. I have all the different definitions from the dictionary cold here. Yeah. In its largest sense, a state is a body politic or society of men. So from here, we have these two new terms. We have body politic and we have society, right? Which this definition doesn't really tell us much. So we have to keep moving. So we move on to body politic, state or nation or public associations. So we've established that this word means the same as the word nation and the same as the word public associations, but we still don't have any information at all whatsoever. So then I kept digging and I said, okay, so all these words mean all the same fucking thing. Okay, so let's look at those now next. And then I hit nation. And then I hit nation, and that's when things finally started to break open and make sense. Okay, so this definition applies to the word body politic. It applies to the word state. It applies to the term public associations. It applies to the term society. Anything you could think of, except maybe the word country, which is maybe a little different. Most words are this definition of the word nation. The definition is an independent body politic, a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. But every combination of men who govern themselves independently of all others will not be considered a nation. A body of pirates, for example, who govern themselves are not a nation. To constitute a nation, another ingredient is required. The body thus formed must respect other nations in general and each of their members in particular. Such a society has her affairs and her interests. She deliberates and takes resolutions in common, thus becoming a moral person who possesses an understanding and will peculiar to herself and is susceptible of obligations and rights. And I find it kind of interesting that they gendered the nation itself as a her as they proceeded through this. And I think the reason why, if I had to assume, the reason why is because as we get into diplomatic relations, we are getting into more of a feminine energy, right? So what is this definition? This definition basically means it is a group of individuals that operate well together internally and externally. The definition of the word nation is not necessarily a passive definition. It is an action or active definition having to do with the actual sharing of tranquility and peace throughout other groups of individual men. When they say the word men, they are obviously including women in that example. But the thing is I do find it fascinating, like I said, is that throughout this definition, they start to genderize the actual idea of the definition of this body that operates together. So a nation is the same thing as a human body. A human body is a collection of cells, all of which have independent, I guess you could say, sentience or living aspects. And those cells all form together into this one individual body. And then that individual body is steered and animated by a spiritual entity. In my opinion, that is the structure of how this works. And the definition of the word nation is exactly the same thing. And it has absolutely nothing to do with physical location, territory, space, coordinates, or any other aspect that would cause a person to believe that the word nation would be something like California or, United States or South Korea or any other aspect of which we have all been brainwashed. God even knows where to believe. I don't even know where that came from. School, maybe? No one can point to an actual point. But the thing is that is all false information. The definition of the word nation has absolutely nothing to do with the physical world at all. There would be no way to pin a nation to a physical coordinate. There would be no way to explain the definition of a nation in a physical way. And there'd be no way to explain location or country in relation to nation, because that is completely irrelevant. And if we were in a lawsuit or if we were in a trial, I would simply stand up and I would say, objection, relevance. There is no relevance.
Is it fair to say that you and I we have co-created a nation in this conversation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
By the definition, it's almost whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
If you believe in this definition and you believe in the idea that some of these things are true or real or truth or, whether you like it or not, yes, this is a nation. This is a nation. It's a temporary nation.
It's a temporary nation, right? But I love it, right? Because for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. So that's a beautiful definition. And I think that dovetails nicely. I know you know where you're going, but to get this sense of like, all right, so there's these two different versions of us. How did that happen?
Well, we have to keep going. We have to keep going for that. So the definition of the word state and the definition of the word nation is the same thing. Body politic, society, nation, state, all these things mean the same thing. So what I do is I just replace the word state with the word nation. Okay. Now we have the definition of the word person here. Every time you see the word person, you need to, all the alarm bells need to go off and you need to stop everything, stop the train immediately. What the fuck are they talking about? Right. So Title 8, which is where we're at now, Title 8 is aliens and nationality, I believe is the name of Title 8. We need to find out this definition of the word person they're using here. What is this definition? It's going to be different than the one we reviewed earlier in the show. So we're going to click on that. The term person means an individual or an organization. And the word individual is up for a lot of debate. So we'll just leave that alone for now. But the term organization, if we go down to subsection 28, subsection A28 here, we're going to find the special definition of the word organization, which is also quite shocking. Here it is right here. The term organization means, but is not limited to, an organization, corporation, company, partnership, association, trust, foundation, or fund, and includes a group of persons. Mm-hmm. By the way, the term people is what you see in We the People in the Constitution. You won't see the term people anywhere. They aren't talking about people. They are talking about persons.
Yes.
The plural in all of statutory law is not people. They are not talking about people.
Right.
They're talking about a completely different subject where the plural is persons. So when you see the term persons, that should also trigger something for you and get you to realize they are not talking about anything constitutional. They are talking about something completely different. There's a completely different term here. You will not see the word persons used anywhere from like 1776 until like 1871 or something crazy.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Brandon, real quick, who's they?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
Whoever wrote all this stuff, you can go back in time and look up the Supreme Court justices that were involved in the slaughterhouse cases in 1871. You can look up the people who drafted the 14th Amendment. You can look up the people who drafted the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. And those people involved in those three things would be the definition of the word they.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that.
So let's get back to this. It includes a group of persons, whether or not incorporated, permanently or temporarily associated together with joint action on any subject or subjects. So if you really break this definition down, it includes everything and everyone all the time, regardless of anyone even saying anything about it. I mean, it's literally everything, everywhere, everyone, everything. which is pretty fascinating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So organization basically means everything, everyone, always, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? So if you take it that far, if we were to reread this, and I were to replace this word person and this word state, and just kind of reread this, the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a nation upon literally anyone, anything, anywhere, whether or not even described or mentioned, or there's no paper doesn't matter. Anything, anyone, any group, anything, anywhere after birth by any means whatsoever. So what does the definition of the term naturalization translate into in English? Wherever you say anything or anyone, not just yourself, any other person or thing or organization or group or individual or club or online a Call of Duty clan or business or family or anything by any means whatsoever. Anyone can relocate anyone or anything or any group or anything at all by any means whatsoever at any point in time by saying literally anything, and anyone can relocate anything or anyone to any location at any point in time as often as they want by doing literally anything. So people are upset because they believe that the government is suppressing them or oppressing them. But in actual fact, the government has given you such, not given you, but the government has clarified a right of which you already have. Even if this definition of naturalization disappeared tomorrow, this definition of naturalization is nothing more than a description and clarification of that of which you already have.
Correct.
Everything in law is based off of contracts. If you say to someone that they live in what is called state of California, which happens to be a business listed on Dun & Bradstreet, which is located in the District of Columbia, and the other individual does not rebut that assumption, contractually, you have just legally moved that person, which would be defined as an individual or an organization, into the District of Columbia. So if someone says to me, Brandon, you live in state of California, I'm going to start screaming, breaking lamps. There's going to be broken windows. I'll be throwing chairs. If I can get my hands on guns, I'll be shooting guns in the air, setting fire to the building. I don't live or domicile in, or I am not a resident of. I have nothing to do with the physical location of a business which is located in the District of Columbia, which happens to be called State of California. But the thing is that you are allowing people to naturalize you into this business all the time. I will set fire to my entire town if people try to naturalize me into the business called State of California.
Very clear. Where do you domicile?
Domicile, in my body.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Right here. The answer is here. Here. That is the answer. One of the things I posted recently that I really enjoy, actually, and I'm going to start using it sometimes just to fuck with people, especially bar cards, is I'm not homeless. I'm home free.
Yeah. I saw that you posted that in your Facebook group, which, by the way, is so cool to be a part of. And not everyone can, but you can try and you might get in there. It's a very active group of a lot of people making a lot of serious moves and supporting each other. It is the epitome of what we're talking about here in terms of a nation. Yeah, it's good.
You asked me permanent address on a form. My answer is here. Here. That is the permanent address.
Right. And then for mail delivery, the rural delivery, right?
Yeah, we can get into all that. But the thing is that what is your permanent address? What is your domicile?
Right here. Yep.
Here.
Wow.
And people say, oh, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. What's funny is that
Uh-huh.
There is absolutely nothing. There is not a single statute. There is not a single UN article. There is not a single thing in 1,000 years of law that prevents you from writing HERE under permanent address.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of things to learn, and we're going to direct everyone, obviously, to your course, which is free and incredible. And from literally video one, which is a huge distinction between 1.0 and 2.0 version. So, just to kind of backtrack and give people a little perspective, because I have a feeling that everyone listening is pretty brand new to this concept, based on the women that I guide and coach, like not a single one has been expressed any interest in this because of just a lot of confusion and overwhelming fear, right, from the Wesley Snipes case specifically. But
well, real quick on that.
Yeah.
Well, check this out. I believe the plaintiff is listed first. United States v. Wesley Snipes. Let's see what pops up.
Yeah.
I believe it's called Pacer Monitor.
Mm.
Let me see here. I also have my recap. Let's see what we can do here. We've got United States v. Wesley Snipes. Let's see what we got. Here we go. This is date terminated. So we have here, this might be it. Let's take a look here. We have, this is called Court Listener by Free Law Project. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Very sadly, this is very, very sad to tell you. So when you see the little blue indicator, that means that somebody has paid to download this document while they had the recap extension installed in Chrome. It appears upon just a brief motion here, because this one is 338 docket items. Let's see if we go back. Let's see if we can find another. I could have sworn the one I looked at was 600 something docket items. Let's see what this one has for us. This is pretty shocking to me. I haven't looked at this before, but it appears as though these cases have not been downloaded into Recap, which is hilarious because if you go into my case, every single docket item has been carefully downloaded into Recap. So if you go into my williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com current and previous litigation, and you go down to my most popular case, which is my first case individual, myself as the plaintiff, and you click on the recap link right here, you'll go down and you'll see every single item is blue. I did not download these.
Mm-hmm.
This is just because of the popularity of this particular case.
Oh, wow.
So you can actually just go here and you can actually go and you can just click on the main document, which is my original complaint, which is the original document that started everything. All you do is just, there's a little arrow here. You can click on this and you can do various things, but really all you do is just click download PDF, instantaneous access.
Oh, wow.
No credit card, no identification, no login, no email, completely anonymous. Absolutely nothing is required. You can download this document. As you can see, it is a PDF document. Every single item in the entire docket is completely and downloadable entirely for free. You can go through every single item. I recommend you do my course first. You will not understand most of this, but if you go through my entire course, the free 2.0 contract killer course, by the end, you will be able to navigate all of this documentation. Even at the end of my course, this might not be the easiest thing in the whole world to navigate, but you will, with a little bit of effort, be able to navigate this entire case. And then after that point, you could go and you could navigate the entire Wesley Snipes case.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say is that from video one in the 2.0 contract killer course, which I cannot recommend to anyone highly enough, as opposed to the first, is that Right away, video one, you put us into action. You gave us an action step. And that's what was missing. I don't even know how many videos I watched in the first course, and I hadn't taken any action. So I love that you have us right away like, okay, get these things going. Here's the main contracts. There are more, but we're going to talk about that later. These are the main core concepts or contracts that you're going to kill. You're going to sever, opt out of diplomatically. And that's the most important part to remember, and lawfully and legally. So back to naturalization and what got us into this whole thing. And I remember listening to your first video, I believe, where you talked about when you first read that, it took you a couple of months to process the gravity of what this actually is trying to say.
You can move anyone or anything, including yourself, your loved ones, Starbucks. You could even technically move the U.S. government, because the U.S. government is a person.
Yeah.
You could confer the nationality of New Zealand on the person called United States. And now if the person called United States does not actively rebut, attack, and clarify that assumption, you have legally moved United States into New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. Can you break that down for a 5-year-old just in case?
That's as simple as it gets. If you say, I hereby confer the nationality of New Zealand upon United States after birth by any means whatsoever, now United States, or a representative of the person called United States, now needs to rebut that assumption. If they fail to rebut that assumption, for example, in a lawsuit, they only have 10, 20, 30 days. If they file for what's called an enlargement of time, they can get additional time to rebut that assumption. If they fail to rebut that assumption and they fail to file for an enlargement in time to rebut that assumption, then you have effectively and legally, within the confines of that particular case number, you have legally moved the person called United States to New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. This is why it's so important to be embodied in the legalese, because what you're saying, we're understanding, we're learning from you right now, but it still can be very confusing in the beginning, right? Because it is super mind melting in the beginning, but that is how you would talk about it in court, as an example, right? In litigation. And
well, keep in mind, the term person here includes an individual or an organization, and an organization includes literally everything. So you and I right now have an organization.
Correct.
That organization does not have a name. We would need to give it a name in order to naturalize it. So let's say, for example, you and I named this, M and P or M and B, and that was the name of the organization. Just
were you going to say Michelle and Pickles?
M and B.
Okay.
So let's just say M and B, M and P. We'll do M and P. So M and P is the name of the organization, because we do have an organization right now, as per 8 USC 1101 subsection 828 definition of organization. So let's say MNP. If I were to say our organization is now called for, whatever legal purposes or whatever, MNP. And then right now, live on this show, I hereby confer the nationality of the state called, let's say, Heaven, upon MNP after birth by any means whatsoever. If you or someone else does not rebut what I just said, MNP, which is an organization, is now legally naturalized into the nation called Heaven. And now if they want to have additional questions as to heaven and the physical location of heaven and what is heaven and how do we define heaven, that would be a whole nother legal conversation.
Okay, got it. I know I can feel into my listeners and viewers' minds that this is like, wait, what? We're going off into these definitions, but this is the whole point, is that there are a lot of different definitions. And I know that you work off of Black's Law, multiple editions, and they're all on your website available for download, which is such a gift. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Why Black's Law?
So a lot of Black's Law, if you go on county websites and legal websites and court websites, they tell you straight up, we use Black's Law. Here's Black's Law definitions. But then the naysayers come in and the haters, and they say, "Oh, Black's Law is horseshit," and Black's Law is this. So it's actually hilarious, because the thing is that Black's Law, most of Black's Law, just concerns various court cases throughout the years. So if you ever see a hater or a naysayer and they go, "Oh, Black's Law, blah blah blah," and they're talking shit, they're talking shit about the entire judicial system. Yeah. They're not talking shit about a book. They're talking shit about the entire judicial system. They don't have a respect for the judicial process. They don't have a respect for the judicial system. They are degrading law. They are ignorant. They are degrading what we have. They are degrading the system that we have. Now, the beauty of these older editions, in my opinion, is when you go back 100 years, people actually enjoyed getting together and having a lawsuit. There was no television. There was no anything. The most exciting thing was a horse lost its hoof in town in the mud. Litigation was probably, if I had to assume, litigation was the television of the 150 years ago. Totally. Now, people would get together and there'd be emotions and excitement and all this stuff would be happening. I guarantee the whole fucking town was there. And what would they be talking about? Oftentimes, they'd be talking about the meanings of words, terms, phrases, and situations. When you go back 100 to 150 years, you find intelligent people actively curious about and aggressively searching and analyzing the ideas and definitions, morality and ethical codes as regards to occurrences and behaviors and ideas and phrases. Nowadays, no one does that. So the thing is that, in my opinion, the lawsuits and the litigation and the court cases from, let's say, for example, the 1800s or the early 1900s is almost everything I look at. Because anytime I ever look at anything past like maybe 1920, I yawn and want to go to sleep. The fuck are you talking about? This is boring. So the thing is that the fourth edition, which is my favorite of the Black's Law Dictionary, is a collection of most of the quote unquote definitions that you'll see are nothing more than excerpts from court cases that occurred in the past. And if you go back to the fourth edition, you don't get a lot of the mindless trash that occurred after, let's say, 1945, 1955. A lot of what you see in the fourth edition is the old opinions and conversations, which happened to be much more intelligent and revealing. They are also more difficult to read. Yeah. 150 years ago, people are talking about something and you're sitting there, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? It requires a little bit of work to increase your vocabulary to understand some of the things they're speaking about. But when you do that, the richness available in the conversation that they are having is tremendous. Yeah.
And it seems to me, and I'm just embarking on the path, but it's because it's rooted in real law, English common law and trust law. And then we eventually.
And morality. Common law was a body of law that was based off of just whatever, meaning you hurt someone and then the town would come together and they would just make up just whatever they made up. That's what you would experience. And if that was being in the stocks for 7 days with no water, if that was being hung, drawn, and quartered in the middle of town square while the whole town watched, if that was being handcuffed and having every single body part in your whole body torn off while you slowly screamed in agony, that was your sentence. I mean, there was no codes, there was no books. It was just, fuck this guy, let's tear his arms off. Everyone would scream yes. And now he's getting his fucking arms torn off by horses. And that was it. So common law was notoriously violent. People would say, let's tear his arms off and his dick off. 10 people would raise their hand, and then before you know it, the body parts are coming off. So the thing is that what happened was there was another body of law that was developed to try to mitigate the extreme violence associated with common law. And that body of law and that type of court is called equity.
Mm.
So equity was the second, or here in America, as far as I'm concerned, as far as my research has gone, equity was the second court that was created to try to give. It's like, guys, let's not cut off all of his fingers slowly over the course of 90 days. Let's try something different. That was equity. Okay. And then as equity was produced, then we started moving into the entire government was incorporated in 1871. And then now we have codes and everything's based off of codes. Before that, the sentence was just made up. I mean, there could be a bunch of people who got together and the guy robbed the saloon. He didn't hurt anyone. He gave all the money back. And now they want him to go through and fix holes in the ground. You're going to paint this building. You're going to paint this building. You're going to fix the plumbing in this building. You're going to do this, and this. And that was his sentence. And then he would be supervised by the sheriff, which is just one guy. The old Wild West movies do a great job of describing how this really was. It was just one guy smoking a cigar. He didn't do a whole lot. Even the criminals respected him. And what happened is the criminals could do whatever they want, and then they start hurting people. And that's when the sheriff would step in, right? And if it was a larger jurisdiction and there was a lot of people there, the sheriff would have like one deputy, maybe. Mm. And my ultimate goal is the destruction of the 14th Amendment, which Congress has told us clearly was never properly ratified. Congress talks about this in 1967. The 14th Amendment was never properly ratified. So my goal and my main thing that I would like to accomplish with all the information that I'm doing and all the cool things that I'm doing is to have the 14th Amendment recognized as having never been properly ratified to begin with. And from the tiny bit I've studied on this, the Supreme Court knows about this, but they're not really willing to touch it because they realize that the entire country, if the 14th Amendment was acknowledged to be having never been ratified properly in the first place, the entire country will revert all the way back to about 1840.
Right.
And I don't mean like in an hour. I mean literally instantly.
Right.
The CIA, the FBI, the IRS, public school system, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve, the District of Columbia, police, tickets, the Department of Motor Vehicles, every single licensing organization, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Transportation. I can go on and on and on, but I think you get the idea. All of those agencies will immediately and instantaneously, not in 90 days, not in 30 days, not in 48 hours, instantaneously be evaporated off the face of the earth.
Okay.
What will remain?
Right.
Mothers, local mothers who run their own local schools that have absolutely nothing to do with the government. It is completely and utterly governed by local moms operating together in unison to train their children. And that will be optional, meaning if you don't want to place your child in those local mother-run schools, you don't have to. There is no obligation. Right. That will be the, quote, public school system. The entire government will be composed of basically the county recorder and the sheriff's office. Mm-hmm. The police is gone. The IRS is gone. Every single agency you have ever known is instantaneously and completely wiped off the face of the earth. And you say to yourself, well, what about all the jobs? The FBI, the CIA, all these organizations and the police can all be merged into the sheriff's office as basically subsectors of the sheriff's office. Now, what does that do? What does that change? All victimless crimes will no longer cease to exist. The sheriff's office only deals with crimes that have a victim, and the victim have to press charges.
So we define victimless crime. Sorry.
So possessing It's a whole nother conversation. Possessing a firearm. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with firearms. So people are very, very confused. This word firearms, the word firearms has nothing to do with anything. Like this right here is not a firearm. The firearms are not protected by the Second Amendment. This is not a firearm. This is an arm. Big difference. Arms are protected by the Second Amendment. Firearms are not. They're completely different terms. Firearms are applied to the country called United States and applies to what is called United States citizens, of which I am not inside of, I am not located in, I am not domiciled in, I am not a resident of, nor am I a U.S. citizen. So the term firearm would have absolutely nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. The term arm applies to everything I have and everything I do. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that the Second Amendment does apply to me, but the thing is that the reason why there's so much confusion on this subject is because the Second Amendment applies to a very, very, very small percentage of all of the people who believe they are in North America because of the way they have contracted. If you have ever signed up for voter registration, you have signed under penalty of perjury, thus naturalizing you, as per 8 USC 1101 subsection A23, into a country or a state called United States, which is located in the District of Columbia. In the District of Columbia, you don't have the Second Amendment. That's why it's not called arms, it's called firearms, and the Second Amendment has absolutely fucking nothing to do with you or anything you own. Thus, you need a permit to carry one, and you need special approval to purchase and own one, and you have to have a serial number on it. It comes down to naturalization, and people say, oh, well, that's all bullshit and this, all that. You have the infinite freedom to naturalize any way you see fit, anytime you want. I could naturalize 500,000 times in probably 48 hours. It would take me a while to naturalize that many times, but I could naturalize 500,000 times in 48 hours. I could create and manufacture probably 600 trusts in the next 3 or 4 or 5 days if I really, really wanted to focus on it. Every single one of those trusts is a person, and I could naturalize and renaturalize every single one of those persons thousands and thousands and thousands of times whenever I want, as many times as I want, every single 2 or 3 seconds in every single day.
Got it. Yeah.
So this term status correction becomes very, very static. People think, oh, status correction. I fill out a few documents, I send them in, I shift from A to B. That's not what status correction is, in my opinion, anymore. Status correction is a flowing martial art, sort of like how Bruce Lee describes it. Be like water, my friend. You are water, and you can shift all of your persons as many times as you want, thousands of times per day. I could get pulled over right now by a cop. The cop says, where do you live? I'm a resident of Antarctica. Now, when you said that, when those words came out of your mouth, I just naturalized.
That's right.
I conferred the nationality of a state upon myself after birth by any means whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that people believe they're lying to the police officer. You aren't lying, you're naturalizing. And in fact, what I would do is I would say, officer, are you recording right now? Yes, I am. Excellent. I confer the nationality of Antarctica upon myself after birth by any means whatsoever. Where do you live? Where do you domicile? Where are you a resident of? Antarctica, heaven, hell, Russia, whatever. You could say anything you want. And then through a Freedom of Information Act request, you're going to request the copy of that video. And the cop is going to say he lied during the traffic stop. I'm going to say I didn't lie. I naturalized. This video is proof of naturalization.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So then if you were to appear in court and not sign off, well, you'd have to sign off. Do you sign off on the ticket in that instance?
So
we're in the weeds right here. I didn't expect to go here because we're going to get to the 14th Amendment and when the Naturalization Act actually was enacted.
So let's not get into all that, because then we're going to get into financials, and it's just going to go down the hole. Okay. So let's go back to this.
Yeah.
So we have this term naturalization, which is by far, in my opinion, the most important definition in all of law. Now here we have the definition of what everyone's talking about. Okay. And I do that whole preamble because everyone's talking about this and no one really understands it. And I didn't really understand it. I mean, for a long time, I thought I did. I didn't, to be honest with you. So we have 8 USC 1101 subsection A21. The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. Now, if you notice, I find it fascinating. The term national is never capitalized. Ever. The only place you see it I'm not going to get into it. There's one place where you see it capitalized, and I think that they fucked up because everywhere else it's not capitalized. There's only one place, and I think they fucked it up. I don't think that it's supposed to be capitalized because everywhere else it's not capitalized. So as far as I'm concerned, the term national is not even a proper noun. It's actually not even capitalized. It's actually just a common term. If you replace the word person with the definition, now what's the definition of the word permanent? The term permanent means a relationship of continuing or lasting nature, as distinguished from temporary, but a relationship may be permanent, even though it is one that may be dissolved eventually at the instance either of the United States or of the individual in accordance with law. So permanent doesn't have a definition. It's an oxymoron. It's horseshit, and I just remove it because it's just confusing and it's a joke. So if we reread this, the term national means an individual or an organization owing allegiance to a nation.
Yep.
A group. Any group of individuals operating together with good internal and external tranquility and operating for peace, operating with morals and decorum. That is the and you saw earlier in 18 USC 11, you saw that it include a foreign government includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. Well, if that's the case, then we need to clear up the legal definition of the word peace, which I have right here. And it dovetails beautifully into the feminine spirit, and it dovetails beautifully into the definition of nation. Peace is defined as the tranquility enjoyed by a political society internally by the good order which reigns among its members, and externally by the good understanding it has with all other nations. Applied to the internal regulations of a nation, peace imports, which means shows or indicates, in a technical sense, not merely a state of repose and security as opposed to one of violence or warfare, but likewise a state of public order and decorum.
Wow.
So people say, I just want to be left alone. That's a bit of a rough conversation. The definition of the word peace is not a passive definition. The definition of the word peace is an action definition. The definition of the word peace means that you are actively, you are not merely a state of repose and security as opposed of one. It doesn't mean that, oh, I'm not burning buildings down, so I must be at peace.
Right.
That's not the definition.
Right.
The tranquility enjoyed by a political society internally by the order which reigns among its members, and externally by the good understanding it has with all other nations. And then we go to the end, likewise, a state of public order and decorum.
Wow.
You start getting into diplomatic relations. Do you realize there's entire books that describe how to introduce someone to another person diplomatically? Do you realize there are layouts and graphs of the dinner table that describe where each individual in a diplomatic intercourse is supposed to be sitting? Do you realize there are graphs that show you where the fork is to be placed, the size and scope of the fork, the type of metal, stainless steel, copper that is supposed to be used for the composition of each fork and knife? Everything is defined, and there is an entire technology inside of the diplomatic realm of all of this information. Peace is a technology.
I am so blown away right now. Just a personal note. My listeners and viewers know I'm very devoted to the gene keys. It's just completely saving my life, like the quality of my consciousness and then how I operate in the world. And we're given 11 gene keys for it in each, life. And it's karma into dharma kind of thing, And bottom line, though, is that my purpose gene key is literally the shadow of conflict that reveals the gift of diplomacy, that embodies the essence of peace. Literally, that is my gene key of purpose. And now I just feel like this is just no mistake. I just don't believe in coincidence that I'm learning a different definition of peace that definitely applies to the feminine construct and energetic and the diplomatic way in which, yeah, you are encouraging us to open our eyes to, open our hearts to be in relation with other nations. This is so cool, like on so many levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we go back to 8 USC 1101 subsection A21, this becomes so simple.
Yep.
The term national means an individual or an organization who has oaths or pledges allegiance, which just means,
Yep.
we can get into that for just a moment because I know by this point people start asking, well, what's allegiance, Brandon? If we go to my resources and documents, there's a document that I give away for free called the explanatory statement, which you attach to your DS11 passport application form.
I just filled this out in my little law study group. Shout out to Michael and Desiree and Paul. This exact document, I edited a little bit to make it mine, but thank you so much for these resources.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. So the second edition of Black's Law, quite an old book, more wisdom in that, in my opinion, than any other ones. I like the fourth the most. The fourth is a nice balance. So by allegiance is meant the obligation of fidelity and obedience which the individual owes to the government under which he lives or to his sovereign in return for the protection he receives.
Oh, wow.
It may be an absolute and permanent obligation, or it may be a qualified and temporary one.
Wow.
So what we do is I write in this document, and everything that I do is all custom, temporary, and qualified pledges of allegiance. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree with the fact that I'm about ready to say, but you could write absolutely anything, even things that don't even fit within the definition of nation and peace, and they will accept it and issue you a passport. I don't think that is correct. I think that is incorrect and misbehavior on the part of the Department of State. I think part of the problem is there's like 80 trillion people filling out all these passports, and I think they're just kind of overwhelmed by all of it. I think that's part of the problem. I think part of the problem is also that no one understands any of this information. So I think we have a two-pronged problem. I think that the pledges of allegiance should be very, very carefully reviewed by the Department of State, because the Pledge of Allegiance is the basis of everything. You have 22 USC 212, which is very clear. Persons entitled to passport. Now, keep in mind, the word persons includes organizations.
Right.
So you can ask me, Brandon, does that mean that an organization could get a passport? I've never seen anyone do that. If you sue the Department of State and force them to follow the law, I can guarantee you right now, and I'll probably do it at some point when I get bored, you can get a passport issued to an organization. Never been done, but it would fit the definitions. And if you force them to follow the law, they would have no choice but to issue a passport on behalf of an organization. With that said, who or what individual or organization are entitled to a passport? No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons, which includes organizations, than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States.
Wow. Citizens or not. That's pretty mind-blowing. Right there.
Citizenship is absolutely and entirely not required for any sort of passport via the United States. I always ask the same question. Do you have to live inside of something in order to pledge allegiance to that group or thing? People always say no. The correct answer is no. That is the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
I can pledge allegiance to France right now, and I become a non-citizen national of France.
Yeah. And what's wild is that when you do fill out the application for this passport, which, by the way, your passport's going to look virtually identical to your current passport if you carry one here in the US. It's the chip, right, that deems sort of like the status level, which then speaks to this quote status correction kind of thing. But what's amazing is that it literally gives you the option of whether you are a U.S. citizen or not, right on the actual form.
Not you, your parents and your spouse.
Yes, exactly.
It used to ask you if you were a U.S. citizen. If you do your driver's license, they're going to ask you directly, are you a U.S. citizen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the passport form, they used to ask, are you a U.S. citizen? Now they ask, are your parents U.S. citizens? And if you're married, is your spouse a U.S. citizen? But they do not ask you directly if you are a U.S. citizen anymore. They haven't for probably 10, 12, 15 years, maybe even 20.
Okay, cool. And then
maybe
you direct
even
us.
25.
Okay. And you direct us on how to fill those out and the whole thing, which is just amazing. But so
now hold on.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So a national means a individual, an individual or organization owing allegiance to a nation. Now, if an individual or an organization openly declares, now an organization cannot speak, so you have to speak on behalf of an organization.
Right.
So if I were to reword that, if an individual in relation to another individual, or if an individual or a man or woman is really a better term. If a man or woman confers the nationality of a nation upon another man or woman, that would work. If a man or woman confers a nationality upon an organization, that would also work. So it's not just, it doesn't say the term national means an individual or an organization owing allegiance and pledging that allegiance to themselves of a state.
Right.
It's more open than that. Naturalization is the conferring of nationality of a nation upon any person, which is defined as anyone or any group or anything. It's much more open than people think. If you have LLCs and trusts and corporations and unincorporated corporations and all unincorporated organizations and all sorts of things, all of those various groups or persons all have a nationality, and that nationality is completely and utterly defined by whoever says the nationality upon it by any means whatsoever. If the government says that your LLC is a US LLC and you do not rebut that assumption, the person called the United States has just naturalized your organization, which is an LLC, into the United States successfully. It wasn't in the United States until the person called the United States says it was, and you failed to rebut the assumption.
Wow.
Location is completely and only defined by naturalization.
Wow.
There is no other way to locate anything. Physical location is not an aspect of residency or location or anything. It all comes down to naturalization. A corporation does not have a physical location. A corporation is a legal fiction. It's an idea. How do you locate that idea? You can't locate that idea in the physical plane. It's physically impossible. The only way you can locate a legal fiction is by conferring the nationality of a nation upon that legal fiction, which happens to be a person after birth, by any means whatsoever.
Yeah. Wow.
What is stopping you from doing that 480,000 times in the next 72 hours? The answer is nothing. What's stopping the government or the United States or the Internal Revenue Service or the Department of State from renaturalizing your LLC or S Corp or C Corp or you yourself 450,000 times over the next 72 hours?
Okay.
The answer is nothing.
So this is interesting. A moment ago, and I was like, God, did I misread something or misunderstand something, which is totally common, entirely possible, and happens all the time, especially in this space. But it is interesting on the DS-11 form, which you guide us to apply for our passports. It says, I declare under the penalty of, of all the following, I am a citizen or non-citizen national of the United States. So there's not anything to do about that. Don't call that out, but it is literally right there on the form. So that's what I was referring to earlier. Maybe they changed it since I saw this example. But I just wanted to see if you had anything to say about that, because it's not a checking yes or no. So maybe that's where I misspoke earlier, but it's literally also right there on the form.
It's on the I-9 as well. Box 1 is citizen of the United States. Box 2 is non-citizen national of the United States of the I-9 form. Now, the answer to your question is right here, the next section of this presentation. So we've gone over naturalization. We've gone over U.S. citizen. We've gone over person. We've gone over all these things. Now we're going to go over this next term. Now, a national is a person owing allegiance to a nation. So if you owe allegiance to the nation called United States, which I can't believe we didn't cover this already, where is the person called United States located? We're going to go to UCC 9-307. I'll show you that one. Where is the person called United States located? UCC stands for the Uniform Commercial Code. This first number is the article, which is the same thing as saying title in the United States Code. So it's Article 9, Section 307. We're going to go down to subsection H, location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia.
Right. A business.
It's a business, right?
Yep.
So
like a piece of paper in a file somewhere, maybe.
Yeah. So if you decide that you would like to pledge allegiance on behalf of yourself or your corporations or your S corps or your C corps or your trusts or your partnerships or your associations or your companies to the nation called United States, which happens to be located in the District of Columbia, you would become what is called a national of the United States. My own nation is called the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. If you pledge allegiance or owe allegiance through a contractual decision to the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, you would become a national of the Amnesty Coalition. If you have pledged allegiance to France, you don't need to live in France or even speak French. If you decide one day, wake up one day and you like the idea of pledging allegiance to France and you just decide, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to pledge allegiance to France. You become a national of France. Yep. It's so simple. They say American national and they say all these different terms, the state national. I used to use that term too, state national and national. It's very confusing. A national is somebody who's basically pledged allegiance, just that's it, of whatever it is you've pledged allegiance to. I am a tri-national. I am a national of United States. I am a national of the Republic of Slojamistan, which I'm not going to get into right now. And I am a national of the Amnesty Coalition, the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. Mm-hmm. So on the international spectrum, I am a tri-national. I have allegiance to 3 different nations. Mm. So I could say I'm a national of Slojamistan. I'm a national of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. I'm a national of the United States. If I decide tomorrow I want to pledge allegiance to Italy, national of Italy. Yep. The term national of the United States means A, citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States.
So it's so wild. This is why what you teach is so beautiful, because you have us slow all the way down and totally understand with multiple different resources, definitions. Because again, going back to what it says on this application for a passport, I am a citizen or non-citizen national, lowercase, obviously, of the United States, and have not, since acquired U.S. citizenship or nationality, performed any of the acts, blah, 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 blah. So
this is why.
Yeah.
22 CFR 51.2, passport is issued to nationals only. Subsection A passport may be issued only to a U.S. national. The term U.S. national and the term national of the United States is the same term. But that's not the term they use on the DS-11. What is the term they use on the DS-11?
Non-citizen national.
So with non-citizen national, that means that what they're saying is they're not saying a U.S. national or national of the United States. They're saying only subsection B.
Yep.
So whenever I am accosted by ignorant fucks, I don't say I'm a U.S. national. I don't say I'm a national of the United States. That opens the door for them to be considering me as a citizen. If I tell them that I am a citizen of the United States, I am a felon under 18 USC 911. Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. And 18 USC 4 states that once I commit that felony, whoever finds out that I have committed that felony has to report that felony. Otherwise, they become accessories to the felony. Whoever, having knowledge of the actual commission of a felony cognizable by a court of the United States, conceals and does not as soon as possible make known the same to some judge or some other person in civil or military authority under the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. I am not a felon. I will not be committing felonies. I will not be saying anything that could open the door for anyone else or myself committing felonies. So what term do I use? Non-citizen national of the United States. I'm also a non-citizen national of the nation of the Amnesty Coalition. I'm also a non-citizen national of the Republic of Sajamistan. On an I-9, box A, a citizen of the United, box 1, a citizen of the United States. Box 2, a non-citizen national of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
You have 8 USC 1401. This describes all the different aspects that a person has to have to be nationals and citizens of the United States at birth. 8 USC 1408 describes people who are nationals but not citizens of the United States at birth. 1 or more points inside of 8 USC 1408 applies to my life. And I have been a non-citizen national or national but not citizen of the United States since birth.
Mm-hmm.
And the Department of State will say, oh, no, the only people who are nationals but not citizens of the United States at birth are people who were born in American Samoa.
Right.
That's bullshit. 8 USC 1408 clearly describes the various aspects that if a person fits any of these various aspects, they would be nationals but not citizens since birth. I have 1 or more, and almost anyone who was born outside of the District of Columbia would fit 1 or more aspects of 8 USC 1408.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not a citizen, you don't have a tax liability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct. Boom.
Non-citizen nationals of the United States are not taxpayers by definition. The definition of the word taxpayer comes from 26 USC 7701 subsection A14. Taxpayer. This is where Wesley Snipes fell down pretty badly, by the way. Mm-hmm. The term taxpayer means any person subject to any internal revenue tax. Mm-hmm. As a non-citizen national of the United States, I am not subject to any internal revenue tax. Thus, I would not be a taxpayer.
And therein lies everything we've been talking about since the beginning of this conversation. And that ties back to that beautiful explanatory statement template that you have on your website that we can work off of and then go back and know your legalese, right? Like be embodied in it. But I mean, that right there that's it. We're not a person. And especially if we're not a US citizen. So,
well, the word person is a bit complicated because the word person is used the same way, singular, whether it's in the system or out of the system. It's the plural that really gives it away.
The persons, right?
So persons versus people.
Right.
People would not be a taxpayer.
Ever. Correct.
Persons, it depends. It depends on the whole tax code.
Got it.
Now, the all caps name that you were mentioning earlier, the all caps name was created when the Department of Health and Human Services processed your original long form birth certificate, and they opened up what's called a public corporation of your name in all capital letters. It's basically an interfacing mechanism. That all caps entity is an entirely separate person. Mm-hmm. Now, that person is also naturalized in the same way. Mm-hmm. The government and your mother, when she signed the long form birth certificate, she naturalized the ens legis, the public corporation, the all caps name, into a business called, in my case, State of Indiana.
Yep.
State of Indiana is a business located in the District of Columbia. And that's why when they say that birth makes you a citizen, that's the biggest line of horseshit I've ever heard in my entire life. It makes you a citizen up until the point where you negate the point of naturalization.
Yep.
Once you negate and fight against the point of naturalization, that's not true anymore because the 13th Amendment is very clear. Involuntary servitude does not exist. Indentured servitude does not exist. Forced labor does not exist. And then you also have the UN Declaration of Human Rights, which actually was integrated into the United States Code, I think in the early 50s or the late 40s. You have the UN Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15, Section 1 and Section 2, which is very clear and is integrated into the US Code. Everyone has the right to a nationality, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. So not only does it violate an international human rights violation for anyone to stop you from having or changing your nationality as you see fit through the process of naturalization from 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A23, but it also violates the 13th Amendment, which made forced labor and forcing you into contracts and slavery and peonage. It made all of those things illegal. So not only are they violating the UN Declaration of Human Rights and committing an international human rights violation, but they are also violating the 13th Amendment by preventing you from having a nationality, changing your nationality, naturalizing in any way you want, or naturalizing any business, trust, association, partnership, estate, or any other entity that you control any way you want, in any location you want, and as often as you would like.
Wow. So it feels like this is like probably a pretty good moment to then talk about how naturalization even happened. And I don't really think it's important for purposes of time to go into the fact of how we've been lied to, manipulated, and all that. That's all there or not. Depends on how you look at it. But because I'm really attempting to come at this whole space, this whole endeavor, not just for myself, but many, many, many others that I care and care about and love, but also all of humanity, right? And that's your ultimate intention, is to free everyone from this, is that we just didn't know. And if we did know, well, now whatever, we know better, right? Maya Angelou, when you know better, do better. So that's really what this is. And I feel into the overwhelm in this moment. That's okay. Be with the overwhelm, but don't let it stop you. I'm talking to my viewers and listeners right now, from doing more of your study, which can literally be done through the 2.0 contract killer course. But I think a lot of people that I know are like, again, I said this at the top, if this is really true, why doesn't everyone know about this? And if it really is that simple, then why isn't everyone doing it? We talked about that. It's fear. It's indoctrination. We've been programmed since the day that we were born.
I've never heard of any of this. I've never seen anyone breaking this down. So the thing is that you can't, if you don't know it and you don't understand it and no one's ever told it to you, how would you know?
Well, there you go. But what I was going to say, what we've been so deeply programmed by is the fundamental like guarantee of life. What are we guaranteed in life, right? The two.
Death and taxes.
That's right. So me, my mother, my grandmothers, beyond that, like that's all we've ever been told, right? Since basically the late 1870s.
Yeah, and people go into the Federal Reserve Act of 1911, which I think was finalized in 1913. You have the Emergency Banking Act of 1933, and then you also have the birth of the Social Security Act in 1935. You have the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871, which birthed this entirely foreign country called the District of Columbia, right in the heart, sort of to the right-hand side of our country. You have all these different things, but the thing is that the true point of birth of all of this, and what all of these things ride on top of, and you can go through and you can remove the 16th Amendment, and you can go through and you can remove all these different things individually, but the real truth is that the 14th Amendment is what every single one of these things sits on top of.
Right.
If you remove the 14th Amendment, you remove the entire concrete footing for all of these things all at the same time. You don't have to address any of these things individually. I don't talk about the tax code. I don't talk about the 16th Amendment. I don't care. It has nothing to do with anything, because when I pull the 14th, all that goes with it. There's no conversation that needs to be had.
So
we don't need to talk about the tax code. There's no point.
Right.
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant for my discussion. I don't care. Let's talk about the tax code. Why? Once the 14th Amendment is established, and once we establish what the Congress clearly said in 1967, stating that the 14th Amendment was never properly ratified by 3/4 of the states and it isn't even a legal amendment. Once that is established and recognized and acknowledged as being truth, 16th Amendment, pretty much everything that happened after the 14th Amendment is instantaneously vanishes off the face of the earth, and that includes the 16th Amendment. Hmm. I don't want to talk about the 16th Amendment. Why waste my time?
So everyone that I know, and probably you knew before you got deep into this, and you definitely thought this was like crazy in the beginning for 2 years, even though you were told from someone that you really liked, this is all possible for you. And then your circumstances forced you to just get involved and learn the law. We all think of the 14th Amendment as the abolishment of slavery, but that's not entirely true at all. In fact, it enforced it in a deeper, more sort of covert way, that this is now how we operate in the world, whether it's the birth name or the ens legis name, which happened, as according to you, about 10 days after. And my birth certificate shows the same thing. It's very clearly stamped. And it's like, oh, that's when the quote, all caps name happened. And the woman who signed it, I can't remember her name, but it doesn't matter. It's like when you showed yours, I saw mine. I was like, that's me too. So therein was the emergence of this second person that was naturalized, right? But can we talk about that? Because I think there is a lot of,
I don't know a lot about all this. I haven't dug into the 13th like with insane depth. But the 13th, I don't think there's any issue with the 13th. And I think the 13th more or less is what really kind of clarified slavery and freed the slaves. The 14th, and if you look in the slaughterhouse cases, which is a series of Supreme Court cases where they talk about this, you can type it literally right into Google. You can do it right now. You'll see this is not some kind of conspiracy theory. We'll go to the most fucking crazy, slaughterhouse cases. Series of Supreme Court cases that occurred in 1871. You can see right here on Wikipedia. And some people say, oh, Wikipedia, that's the worst thing you ever want to look at. I like using it because if the front page of Google and Wikipedia says it, it's shocking because I'm not going to, freemanontheland.net from a 1996 freaking a GeoCities page. You know what I mean? This is like, the Slaughterhouse Cases 83 was a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision which ruled that the Privileges or Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution only protects the legal rights that are associated with federal U.S. citizenship, not those that pertain to state citizenship. So what they're saying is that the 14th Amendment created this entirely second citizenship class that did not exist prior to the 14th Amendment. That citizenship class is called federal U.S. citizenship. All the slaves were released into that citizenship, not state citizenship. The Second Amendment and the U.S. Constitution, as well as all of the individual state constitutions, only apply to state citizenship. So when they say in the 14th Amendment that there's privileges and immunities associated with being a federal U.S. citizenship, when you go down that rabbit hole, you realize there's only one privilege and immunity that is given to federal U.S. citizenship people, and that is to reside in the District of Columbia. That is the only right. Like imagine there was a U.S. Constitution and a state constitution for the state called District of Columbia. If that existed, the U.S. Constitution would have only 1 point. It would say 1, to reside in the District of Columbia. And then the state constitution for District of Columbia would have 1 point. It would say 1, to reside in the District of Columbia. Over the years, slowly, everyone has been tricked into believing that the correct category they're supposed to be naturalizing into is the federal U.S. citizenship category. Thus, the way the law looks at it, everyone over the past 150 years has been willfully, knowingly taking their entire U.S. Constitution and their state constitution and their entire actual American heritage, throwing it straight in the trash can. In exchange, they are getting the privileges and immunities of the 14th Amendment, which only is the only privilege and immunity you have is to reside in the District of Columbia, which is why you need a driver's license, a license to cut hair, a license to piss in the snow, a license to sneeze, a license to be a medical doctor, a license to do this, a license to do that. And it's getting worse and worse and worse because the only right that you have as a U.S. citizen, which you gave to yourself and told them that you are, they didn't force it on you at all, is to reside in the District of Columbia. That is the only thing protected under the Privilege and Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment. So the way the whole country works on paper is everyone lives in the District of Columbia in the whole country. And how did you get there? Naturalization.
That's right. Wow.
If you say you are a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person, if you say you are a resident of state of California, boom, you are now in the District of Columbia. You don't have the right to travel. You are now under a completely different terminology called driving or driver, which in Title 49 is defined as a person who operates a commercial motor vehicle. That comes from 49 CFR 390.5T. You use the find feature and type in driver. You'll find it right there. Definition, boom. I'm not going to show it to you, but you can look it up. You don't have the sheriff anymore. You have the police. The police is a private security force that operates in the District of Columbia for U.S. citizens. You don't have people anymore because people don't exist. We the people doesn't apply to you anymore. Has nothing to do with you. It's persons. Wow. You've left we the people. We the people is gone. You threw we the people in the trash can.
Unknowingly. Yeah.
Unknowingly.
Yeah. Innocently. And that's the thing is that once you learn, then you do it differently. And I feel like I know we're beginning to wrap up, but this is a beautiful segue back to the original part of the conversation, which is the status correction. That's what this is, right? I mean, I know that you have a new awareness of around how you would describe it or define it for yourself, but can you share that with our audience?
Status correction is just simply knowing that there's all these different persons and that you can move around all of these persons just by simply naturalizing them anywhere you want at any point in time you want. So anything or anyone or any organization can be moved by conferring the nationality of anything upon anything after birth by any means whatsoever.
Yeah.
Status correction is not I believe that I was here and now I need to file a document so I can now be located here. That is a very novice, very low level idea of status correction.
Right. Now, there are contracts that we do want to reclaim or sever or kill, I guess, in the words that you use. But yeah, I mean, I've heard you say in your own video, it's understanding the word person and location, persons and location.
It's the word person and the word naturalization.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Oh, so then you've even upgraded. This is the thing is I love how you talk about how it's fluid, it's organic. It's like, the more that you go down this path, the more that you also learn and bring back to us, which I'm just so grateful for your brand new 2.0 course. So I feel like there's a lot that's been shared. It's so I feel so full. Thank you so much, Brandon. What in this conversation do you feel like would be a good place to button it up with, like, obviously we'll give an action step and invite anyone who feels called. And even if you're scared, just go check out the course that needs to be shared to complete the conversation.
Well, the 2.0 course, I mean, everything we've covered in this we haven't even completed to go over the information that's found in just video 1 of the 2.0 course. We've covered in this conversation, because we were kind of riffing a little bit for a while, the first half. The second half, we've only covered maybe about 80 or 85% of what is covered in the very first video of the 2.0 course. The 2.0 course is a total of 36 hours of material.
Oh, total?
Yeah. So imagine if someone enjoys this course and they want more information, we have just covered 1/42nd of what's in the 2.0 course.
Yeah, beautiful. And can you share your philosophy or your reasons behind putting thousands and thousands of hours of your research into a completely free course that many people, thousands of people are on the path of going through the course, doing the work, killing the contracts? Why are you offering that for free?
Well, you're going to learn later on in the course, what you think is money and what you think you have in your wallet isn't. It has nothing to do with money at all whatsoever. Money is defined in Article 1, Section 10 as gold and silver coins that are issued by state legislatures, which we don't even have anymore. They've been gone since probably 1871. So what you have in your pocket is actually what's called negotiable instruments. It's the same as saying securities. The same thing they're swapping on the S&P 500 or down in Wall Street, stocks and bonds. That's all you have in your wallet, and that's all you have in your bank account, and you just didn't know it, right? When you start to understand and learn the way that negotiable meaning transferable and instruments meaning contracts or agreements, that's the simplicity of that definition. Once you understand the way those things work and how they become redeemed or exchanged, which is a subject called endorsements, you've seen that word on the back of your checks, spelled with an E. But when you start to get deep down into the research, you actually realize that the original definition starts with an I, and I like to use that definition and that spelling more. So it's INDORSEMENT. Mm-hmm. When you start realizing the power and the technology involved in endorsements and endorsing, what happens is it opens the door for you to create infinite money. And what I mean by that is I could go down the street and I could sign documentation for loans for several mansions, and I would never, ever have to perform on any of those contracts, and I would get all 5 mansions, and there's absolutely nothing anyone could do about it. And if they denied me the credit that I would need in order to purchase those mansions, I could sue them, get damages for them denying me that credit, also get the credit, plus buy the mansions, then sue them again for them trying to force me to actually perform on those mortgages, so I could actually get paid for getting free houses. Okay. And I teach all of that information in the free course later. That's the 3rd or 4th section of the free course. We start to dive into what is called the Uniform Commercial Code Article 3, and I take you through the entire Uniform Commercial Code Article 3 line by line and word by word in a 6-part series, which is located later in the 2.0 course.
Okay.
So why anyone would think that I need your Federal Reserve notes, which are nothing more than just promissory notes, of which I can manufacture out of thin air from your wallet, is delusional. I don't need your Federal Reserve notes. And the thing is that by taking your Federal Reserve notes, I also receive an obligation to perform for you. So the thing is that I don't need your Federal Reserve notes, and I'm not going to obligate myself to you. So thus I don't accept them, basically.
Okay. And also, I've heard you talk about you've studied Dan Pena's work, who is a major, major mentor of yours, and you want to offer as much for free as possible, give it all away, and then take on like really high end paying clients, which is what you do through your law firm.
Yeah, until I crack infinite money, which I'm doing, I actually literally like 15 minutes before I got on the show, I have a brand new case that just got activated. I'm going to go on there and put up all the links and put up the recap and everything here, literally after we get off the call here. I'm going to continue to punch these walls until I get infinite money. And the definition of infinite money is the US Treasury or Amex or somebody else. They're going to be issuing me a black credit card that it doesn't have any limit, and I never have to pay. I don't even get a statement. Literally, I could go and buy 15 mansions and a private jet, set them all on fire, and I would never have to pay or perform or do any. I won't even get a credit card statement.
So
now, until that happens, I have to continue to basically act as though I'm retarded, which means that I have to continue to exchange negotiable instruments called Federal Reserve notes and present them to people in order to buy things like food and other objects, as I'm sure you're aware. So temporarily, I started taking on some major litigation clients that do donate securities internationally, because they're actually donating these securities to the nation of the Amnesty Coalition. So it's an international donation of securities, and that will continue to occur until I crack infinite money. And then at that point, I will no longer need to exchange services for negotiable instruments.
Okay. Very clear. And all that legalese that you just used is obviously comes from Black's Law, a lot of it. It's a lot of what you teach. So I'm really
a lot of that comes from the financial end. A lot of that comes from the Uniform Commercial Code specifically, which you'll find a lot of that in Black's Law, but it's very, very, very old cases, 1850s, 1840s, 1860s, 1830s. Yeah. Uniform Commercial Code has a lot of that information in it. And what's amazing is you start studying the history of all that, and it really hasn't changed at all since the 1830s. Yeah. Almost none of it has changed at all whatsoever.
Yeah. You know, we started this conversation with talking about really the systemic racism, especially in the LAPD. And obviously, this is from the lens of one guy that you talked to that gave you his opinion on a consensus of some others that he knows it's exactly how it goes. Again, one opinion. However, what I really want to invite everyone to do is to go and read what you've written about the 14th Amendment and how that's just a beautiful way to kind of circle it all up is just getting present to just when I read what you wrote, I cried, and I had never felt that much empathy in my life. And I'm a wildly empathetic woman for the melanated man, you know, and woman. And it was just like, whoa. And I'm in a law study group with one and he was here, you know, we're here studying this, and it's just so beautiful to watch those that are on your path and are on this path to honestly just fully integrate and let that go in honor of getting as many people, including melanated colored friends and family members, community members, free, you know? And so that at the heart, I think we didn't get into that. I thought we would just only cover 14th Amendment, but I realized the conversation went to where it needed to go. But the reality is that there are so many different parts to this. And so I really just hope that whatever someone feels a little snagged by or confused or overwhelmed or triggered by, be with that. This is me speaking in the normal language of the show, but like be with that. And I loved, Brandon, what you said at the beginning. It was like, what about all my friends, especially my bar card carrying attorney friends, are like, if this is super lawful and legal, why isn't everyone doing it? It's just like that whole thing of like, there are people who know about it, but they're afraid. And then this is actually speaking to a deeper thing in life to get really present to, which is, where else am I afraid? And where am I picking that up? And what about out there that I'm upset about, that I'm in resonance with on the internal? And so this is just a really spiritual, sovereign journey at the deepest level for me. And I don't know a whole lot. Obviously, I'm asking questions like a 5-year-old, but I do know, even though I'm at a very glacial pace, I'm making progress. And every time I unlock a new level of the video game, if you will, I'm more empowered, and it's quiet. It's just almost invisible. It doesn't need to make sense to anyone else except that I share it, and some people can read through the lines, most can't. But this is, I believe, a beautiful, beautiful way in which we can literally, truly get ourselves free on so many levels. So I just wanted to say thank you for your deep work.
Yeah. And on that point, I mean, you can make 6 figures doing door-to-door sales pretty easily. I mean, you just knock on some doors, you say, hey, I have some, I used to, for a short time, I was selling meat door-to-door, steaks and stuff like this. Is a long time ago when I didn't, very young and had no clue what was going on. And the guys that worked there were like coked out maniacs, and it was kind of a bit of a trip. But you could go door to door and sell almost anything. You could sell cookies. You could sell anything. And you knock on a door. Yeah, you knock on a door and you say, hey, you need cleaning supplies. Hey, do you need I don't know, find something that almost everyone needs, and just say hi and be kind. And you can create a 6-figure income just by going down the street and knocking on doors and being friendly. And especially if you're in the area, hi, I live down the street. I don't have a job. And I am just going door to door and seeing if anyone needs, I can go shopping for you. If you'd like me to go to the grocery store, I can go shopping for you. I could, find a good mechanic for you. I could do all these. So really, most things in life are pretty simple. We complicate them through our own confusions and our own emotions. This subject is no different.
Yeah.
It's no different. If I lost everything tomorrow, I would do door to door, and I would knock on the door and I'd say, what do you need? I need my lawn mowed. Okay. I'll mow your lawn for you. It's pretty simple. Yeah. It's very simple. But it's not simple. We complicate things through fear and through anxiety and through, most people, you see a lot of surveys where the number one terror people have, even over dying, is public speaking.
Yeah. Especially in today's world of cancel culture.
Yeah. So the thing is that you don't do things because you're terrified and confused.
Yeah. You also then don't remember or know who you really are. I want to share really briefly, just, Michael, who's in my law study group, I asked him, how's it going? He's on video 8, like in 3 days. And he's like, I'm really enjoying it. I think I see the real vision with this finally. Just I wanted to share his point of view with you and my listeners. The entire point for him of all of this is to take steps to make you feel more confident in standing in your true God-given sovereignty with the power to make everlasting changes to a very corrupt system. The exact details of processes don't really matter that much as long as you believe in what you are doing and moving in love and honor to seek truth and bring light into the world to see, no matter what the immediate consequences are. He has a line in one of his videos where he talks about reincarnation and how if we don't make the necessary changes to this planet in this life, we're just going to reincarnate to an even more effed up world. So good. So now I see all these processes and paperwork steps as a training before the real fight that is coming. How much confidence can you build with yourself in order to stand up for what you believe in and what you know in your soul is right? And that, my friend, is your work and helping us awaken to our God-given sovereignty rights. I get very emotional. My emotions are always very, very close to my chest because my gratitude is so rich. Like I think about Luke's story, bringing you on his show, and then that opened up, I don't even know what, or Alex Zek, and then Luke's story, like just in my little world.
And Cal Callahan too. That all came from that same time period.
I watched that one. I've watched
and Kyle
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury. Yeah, Kyle Kingsbury. That was a great show too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched them all. And then
all that happened in the same time period. And the person who kind of made all that happen, including the person who made Confluence happen for me, was Alex Zek. But exactly. Those people are also powerful and they're also cool. That, it was a huge catapult for me because it was, all of those different platforms combined was an incredible. The Cal Callahan show, if you go on YouTube and you look up my show with Cal Callahan, it has like 30 or 40% more views than the fucking show he did with Lance Armstrong, which was his #1 highest performing show ever. My show is like 40% and still climbing, higher performance than the fucking Lance Armstrong show.
Wow. See, that really speaks to also kind of the wave that we are literally riding, in that you are sort of
That's right.
Yeah, totally. The Great Unlearn is that podcast.
Yes.
And I believe that is also the channel on YouTube. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I know also, just since I still have you here, there are quite a few people that are like, whoo, when more and more people find out about this, then the controllers, right, we're going to just kind of like really hammer just making it impossible for us to get some of these basic documents through.
I don't know that to be true. I don't know. We have had no, I don't know that to be true because for whatever reason, the way this is set up is they have to have your consent. It's like part of their, I don't know what it is. They have to have it. If they didn't feel like they needed it, it wouldn't be like this. It would be more like a regime. It would just be
It's so easy. It's so easy. It's like crazy.
there's no, I can't, it has to be, I don't think they're going to do that. I really don't think they're going to do that. Plus you got to think, especially in America, there's 3 guns for every person.
Right.
I mean, if they decide they want to go in that direction of tyranny, they can't do it here.
Well, they could try, because they are quite desperate right now. And
they can't do it here. This is the one place they can't do it. They literally cannot do it. It cannot be done. There is no fucking way. There's so many goddamn rednecks on fucking lawnmowers. I'm from Indiana. These guys don't give a fuck. They will die for their country. They will die for freedom. They will die for what they believe in. That is this country. And people are starting to lose that a little bit. But the thing is that they're losing it because they're under the false assumption and delusion that what they're seeing now is the country. This is not our country. This is the 14th Amendment.
That's right.
That's what this is. This is the 14th Amendment. This is not America. This is a false, weird ghost of America that has been half converted over to this completely insane, foreign, psychopathic horseshit thing that's all just 14th Amendment. We aren't looking at America. We're looking at the 14th Amendment. That's what this is. That
is so beautifully said. Almost, I'm just like, wow, that's exactly what this is. And that's the part that obviously there's still some confusion around what that is and how that happens. But through your course, you clearly break it down and you use examples and exhibits and the whole thing. But yeah, just speak to my gratitude for you and the work that you do and all kinds of concerns. And it's just like everything else, we are living in some wild times. It's a roller coaster. There's a lot of things that we're awakening to. I know
this is 1776 version 2. And what I'm trying to do is
version 2. I love it.
I'm trying to create version 2 minus all the dead bodies. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But this is 1776. I'm just trying to do what I can to prevent it from being the bloodshed of 1776. Yeah. Ideally, we can get through this without that.
Yeah. So if I may, one more time, just again, if we talk about this in the feminine way or from the feminine spirit and the diplomatic relations, it's really come back to knowing who you are, do your own deep inner work before you embark on this path. Because if I didn't actually already start to just be with my own deepest, ugliest, darkest shadows, then I don't know if the boogeyman, right? It's like the Wizard of Oz, like on steroids. I don't know if I could have truly created my own little lost study group and then get invited to another one and really get on this path. And but it's so beautiful, and irrespective of where it ultimately takes me, if I go through like kind of what you're talking about, infinite money, that's not even what I care about right now. I care about doing the thing that I know is right. That's what I care about. Yeah. And that is so deep in my bones. And if there's other bonuses that come of this, beautiful. My also other intention is to share it with as many people as possible. So sharing it here, I know we have a pretty nice sized show. It's all women. And this is one of those things where don't count yourself out just because you've been told that it's masculine, or it definitely can feel heavy and dark at times, but it doesn't have to be. Take it at your own pace. Know who you are, one little important step at a time.
Yeah, that's why I got involved in the Ars Amorata and the Amorati, because I spent many, many years of my life trying to figure that whole masculine, feminine part of my life out and my own sexuality and trying to figure out my relationship with women, which I struggled with for many, many years, most of my life, actually. And the thing is that, you don't, we need both. We need both. And the thing is that if I had to really pick one or the other, I would pick diplomatic. But the thing is that diplomatic sometimes can only take you to the 85-yard line. And the thing is that all the work that you put in to get you to the 85-yard line, if you can't get to the 100-yard line, is all wasted energy. So the thing is that the enforcement and that masculine warlord spirit oftentimes is needed to get you from the 85-yard line to the 100-yard line. But the thing is that it's not always needed. And the entire first 85 yards is all just diplomatic relations.
Totally.
Enforcement and kicking indoors and war paint and everything that I love is only needed part of the time. And frankly, I love it so much, I probably cause things to go into that category when they don't need to be. If I really wanted to step back and, I practically get off sexually by the idea of someone, me sending in documentation and they telling me to go fuck myself, because that means now we're going to go to war. I'm thrilled. I can't wait to get told to go fuck myself.
Yeah, not me.
Yeah.
However, to your point is I do have, though, a very healthy masculine side of me that's driven a very successful business and podcast and life in general and achieved the bucket list items, that seemed impossible. And that sort of egoic drive, I would say it's almost like a distinction between light worker and light warrior from the feminine point of view. So a light warrior is think, I don't know, Wonder Woman's mom or something like. It's just that masculine energy is the push, it's the drive, it's the do, it's no. And I do believe in that. And I know when to whip that out, and really employ that. But you're right. Like, we don't have to go that far, and we may never have to go that far. But building up for that and preparing for that in deep remembrance of who we truly are as a sovereign spiritual being, I just think that shifts things. And I think that's the biggest medicine that I want to offer in this conversation is I talk about it all the time. I got literally a tattoo of remember who you are. What does that even mean unless it's actually put to test? So here we are, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to get on this path. And so that for me is at the heart of all of it. And it is a beautiful integration of the feminine and masculine.
Exactly. And the thing is that if the masculine is essentially a penetrating energy. And the thing is, you're on the 85-yard line and you're attempting to penetrate through to the 100-yard line. I will destroy any walls that you place between me and that 100-yard line. They are going down. Now, the thing is that you can infuse femininity into that too, which is you need to understand this. The person who's trying to stop me needs to understand this. You need to understand this can benefit you, even Mr. Linebacker, Mr. Person trying to stop me from going to 85 to 100. Even you can be benefited by this. Yeah. And I'm going to give you an opportunity. You have an opportunity. You can either have a conversation with me and I can help you and I can convert you and I can educate you and you can learn this too and it can help you, or I am going to fucking destroy you.
Well, I might not use it in quite those words, but I love that. The way that I understand the true sacred feminine, at least in my own little world, is elevating the God in my man or in the person in front, the human in front of me. And so I love what you just shared about that. I might tweak it a little in language of that last part, but yes, this was my intention, even on the phone with the Department of Health representative. It was like, I'm making this happen. This is happening, whether it's through you or someone above you, this is happening. So I'll go through my diplomatic relations with you that are completely authentic. You're this really great hard worker that takes pride in your job, and you're just trying to do your job right? And so you might not know some things that I've learned, but it's not on me to throw it in your face or to use it as sort of an aggressive tactic. It's me to be diplomatic. And then when it comes time, if I need to, I will pull out some other tools.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much different. I don't think it's that. I think a lot of women and men think that to be masculine means that you make a phone call, start screaming, and then you show up with a baseball bat. And I don't think that's.
I heard it as heavy and dark. And heavy and dark is what it felt like to me. And that's kind of what I thought, well, maybe I would never teach this. because of the reasons why, so many nuances in particular situations. And it's just like, I don't want to deal with all of that and the energy around it. However, right now I'm like dealing with my own, right? And so it's just like, oh, it feels heavy and dark until you start making some progress. And then
Well, the thing is that, like, for example, in the Ars Amorata, the way Zan teaches it is we have the upper light energy and we have the lower dark energy, right? And the thing is that the shame and this negative label that's been labeled on the dark energy has made most men very upper heady energy. And that's what's created this whole nice guy culture. The thing is that lower dark energy, if it's controlled and balanced with upper energy, without it, you don't have passion and sexual tension.
Right.
So the thing is that when I look into a woman's eyes and I get dark and I get very, very dark, there may be some fear associated with that situation, but it's also there's so much tension that the tension can feel like fear. But the thing is that it's what women crave. So the dark has its place, and for us to avoid that darkness is the reason why men have lost their ways and they have not evolved into men, and they're still boys.
Yeah, I'm with you actually 1000% on that. And that is a whole other topic for another time, maybe. But yes, the way I would describe that is I cannot embody the totality of the light that is available to me unless I am willing to embody the dark, Yeah. And so being unafraid to see my own darkness, which is why I personally quit the drinking and the cigarettes and all the things in the TV. I just wanted to be a clear vessel that wasn't taking in unnecessary, anything that wouldn't serve this sovereign journey. I've been on it for about 3 years. Just a real radical deconstruction, spiritual awakening in every possible way. And but it served me, and it's been hard. It's been beautiful. But it's led me here. And I feel like looking back, connecting the dots, and I share this with all my listeners and viewers right now. We've been prepared for this. The timing couldn't be more divine, would be the words that I would use. We are ready. If you're here, if you are listening still, almost 3 hours in, there's something here. So I'm going to encourage you all to go to the links that we're going to share in the show notes and just start your journey. Just start with video 1, and or actually you have to go to your website, right? Not mine, yours. And so we'll get you signed up there. I know you've got lots of new people there. And Brandon, is there anything additionally that you would like to share before we wrap?
There's a lot of humor, a lot of self-deprecating humor, a lot of goofiness, a lot of very childish kind of like college kid sort of language and stuff on a lot of what I do. The reason behind that, I don't typically do a lot of that on shows because it's constricted and it's a new audience, and I typically try to be more, I don't know what you call it, professional, I guess.
Diplomatic.
But you might be a bit shocked by everything out the gate. It's onestupidfuck.com. And I have another website, which is myfaceisachair.com. And we have all these different
don'tbeaslave.com.
And then I have the different websites and all this craziness, and there's pickles and cucumbers and people are showing their feet, and I don't have a foot fetish, but I pretend as though I do. It's kind of like a thing I do with my audience. So there's all this crazy batshit craziness and cursing and hey pussy, are you ready for this? And fuck you. And so just to kind of pad that a little bit and just kind of warn you ahead of time. The reason why I did all that, by the way, just to be clear for your audience, because I know it's more of a female audience or almost entirely female audience, is because this whole subject was the average age of an individual interested in this subject prior to me coming along, and a lot of the other people who are younger nowadays, was no joke, like 65, 75 years old. Like you go into any group, anything, and it's like, it's all older guys that are really concerned about the country, and they're kind of pissed, and no one's listening to them. That was this entire subject. And I kept seeing that over and over and over. And I saw a lot of guys who had material, and it was decent material, and no one wanted to listen to them because they were very angry, very frustrated. It was hard to listen to them. I wanted to change the paradigm of the entire conversation, and I wanted to invite a lot of younger demographics into something and create a more of like a Beavis and Butthead, like Rocco's Modern Life, cartoony kind of like weird college frat boy energy which is a lot of what I do. I really enjoy that. I was in multiple fraternities in college for short times. I totally did all that. I still love that part of who I am. Even in my older age here at 38, I would go and live in a frat house tomorrow. So you have that kind of energy. I wanted to bring the demographics down, and I've been able to successfully bring the demographics down to like a solid like 29 to 31. We have a lot of people in that category, all through 30s, all through 40s, all through 50s. And then naturally, people in their 60s plus are they always have been. Prior to 2020, 60 plus, that's pretty much all you would see in this space. And I just really, really wanted to bring that down as far as I can. We have 15-year-olds doing the course and loving it. Not a lot of those, not very few. I've had like 2 or 3 people comment on my videos. I'm 17. I love this. This is so amazing. And those comments get like 1 million likes. Those comments have more likes than almost any other ones, because it's all older people that all they want is for the younger people to listen and to have a concern about the future of the country. So all the older people, when they see the younger people, they're just like, it's like a standing ovation for the older people to see the younger people looking at this information. And that's what I was trying to achieve. So hopefully it won't turn you off too much. But I just want to explain that as sort of like a filter, because some people may go on there and be like, this is a totally different person than what I just saw on the show. So
exactly. Well, the profanity and how you address us as like stupid bitches and all that. That was hard for me. I'm not going to lie. In the beginning, I was like, what? Because I heard you originally on the Lifestylist podcast, and then I've heard you on all the others that I've mentioned. And I was like, there is a massive disconnect. And then for me, and I know you've heard this, you're not going to stop being who you are, but I'm just sharing and then I was like, oh, well, then I'm not going down that path. I'm going to go find someone else. But when I did go down other paths, very seasoned, established, great leaders in this space, there wasn't anyone that actually really snagged my soul in the way that you do. And so that I could actually, even though I didn't fully understand the many, many times I would watch those first videos and still don't in moments, I have to watch them multiple times over. I was like, yeah, but there's something, it must be the embodiment of your masculine and the work that you're doing and all that prepared you to come into this space. And so that is a transmission that goes beyond the language barrier for me. So I really hope and encourage my listeners and viewers to just rise above it. Just do not let that stop you. It is just entertainment purposes only.
And it's intense. It's intense. It's a lot of, it's like, fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. But it's like very, very intense. So, but I do it all in good fun.
Your brand new course, like the first 45 minutes, it's that. And I was just like,
I know.
Yeah, I'm glad things haven't changed, right?
Well, I do that to protect. Otherwise, I'll get destroyed, especially with how big this is getting. If I don't set the ground rules, this platform will be wiped off the face of the earth. And I knew that already. So I set the ground rules very, very aggressively and very sternly and very almost antagonistically in the first 20 or 30 minutes of the first video. And I do that on purpose because I have to protect my own personal time, and I've been getting a little bit ragged recently with some things, and I've learned a lot of things, and there's certain subjects that I don't want to hear, and I don't need to wake up to 1,200, 1,300 emails. The feminine side of me, I don't like to have unanswered communication. If someone sends me a communication and I don't answer it, I don't like that. It weighs on me. So the thing is that rather than having that weigh on me, and now I'm feeling stressed, and now I'm feeling very heavy and weighed down, and I feel like I have an obligation, I would rather just tell you the first 20 minutes, these are the things I don't want to hear about. If you send these things to me, I'm going to block you, you piece of shit. Fuck you. I actually don't really want to talk to you at all. And just clarify what it is I do want to talk about and what I don't, and what not to message me, and what will the consequences be if you do, right away at the first part of the course. Plus, the course doesn't cost you anything. So the thing is that I have no obligation to you. So I feel like I have already accessed the ability to set the ground rules, because I haven't asked for anything in return to give you access into the course. So those rules are non-negotiable.
Got it. Very clear. And thank you for making it so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are an honorable person. And I'm in your Facebook group, and it's my favorite. I don't even do Facebook really anymore. I'm mostly on Instagram, and it is my favorite place. It's the only place I want to go and just kind of read what people are doing. And everyone's asking questions and working on things and getting shot down in certain places, but then getting access in others and helping each other out of like, what are you learning? And what do you know about this? And then of course everyone goes off and does their own little research, but it is a true little army in there. And it's
Yeah.
an army for good. And I don't know, it's incredible to see what you have created.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that course was that group was irritating me quite a lot. I kept telling them, you guys are pissing me off and this and that. And then after a while, we kind of started to figure that out some more. And then I think now after 2.0, the 2.0 course, I think we're starting to see that group really kind of come into its own and really start to, if anyone comes in the group and starts talking shit or they say stupid shit, we don't even, they just get banned forever
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
There's literally like a zero tolerance. It's a very, very almost military level group. So for those of you who are like, oh, I'm going to go join the group, you're going to get blocked and banned literally instantly. So don't do that. If you want to join the group, you have to go through the whole course. You have to take action. You have to file some things and do some things and prove that you are. And
That
then
was
you
for
can
the
go into the
1.0,
group.
but now it'll be for the 2.0. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's also cool about that, just to speak to, okay, the opposite of that, because once you're in and you're actually in flow, is like, it just seemed like such a small thing, like no big deal at all, but I didn't know who to celebrate it with except my little law study group of like first contract dead, like
Yeah.
getting the acknowledgement from LA County was so big for me. And to be celebrated in your group of just like people who are on that path are like, oh yeah, it just, I don't know, it's just like felt so good. It was like my favorite post I've put out in a long time. And I put out some pretty good posts in my regular stuff. So it's just like having that camaraderie, being in the foxhole together, like knowing that you're supported, that strength in numbers, knowing you're not alone, that you're not embarking on this solo and that others have definitely gone before you. Many will go behind you. And that's the whole point, is pay this forward. So anyway, I feel like it's just this ongoing infinite goodbye, but I just want to say thank you because I know you got to get to some things, but thank you from the bottom of my heart, Brandon Joe.
Thank you for having me on the show. I hope your audience loves this. And yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you.
My pleasure.